The text wasn't meant for him, but he replied anyway. And now, armed men are surrounding her building. What happens when a desperate mother's mistake puts her directly in the crosshairs of a crime lord who already knows everything about her? What choice would you make when protection comes with a price darker than the danger itself? Stay with me until the very end of this story. Hit that like button and comment your city below so I can see how far this journey travels. Now, let me take you into Lena's world, where one wrong number changed everything. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday night, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of reflected neon and despair. Lena Carter sat at her kitchen table in the dim glow of a single overhead light, her phone clutched in trembling hands. The apartment was silent except for the rhythmic beeping of the nebulizer in the next room, where her 6-year-old daughter Maya struggled with another asthma attack. 3 months. 3 months since her ex-husband Marcus had sent a dime for their daughter's medication. 3 months of watching the bills pile up like accusations on her counter. 3 months of choosing between Maya's prescriptions and keeping the heat on. Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She'd sworn she wouldn't beg again. She'd promised herself that the last time Marcus had ignored her calls would truly be the last time. But pride didn't pay for albuterol. Pride didn't keep a 6-year-old breathing. She typed fast before courage could abandon her. Marcus, Maya's in bad shape. The pharmacy won't refill without payment. $347. I know you said you're tight, but please, she's your daughter too. I'm begging you. Her thumb hit send before she could second-guess the words, before she could delete the desperation that bled through every letter. The message disappeared into the digital void. Lena set the phone down and pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over. The nebulizer's rhythm continued its mechanical lullaby in Maya's room. Through the thin walls, she could hear Mrs. Chen's television, the muffled argument from the Robinsons upstairs, the ordinary sounds of people living ordinary lives. Her phone buzzed. Relief flooded through her so fast it made her dizzy. He'd actually responded. Maybe there was still... The message on her screen froze her blood. Wrong number. But I know exactly who you are, Lena Carter. Her breath caught. The phone slipped in her suddenly sweaty palm. Another message appeared before she could process the first. 3247 Ashland Avenue. Apartment 4B. You really should be more careful about who you contact. The room tilted. Lena's vision tunneled. She stared at her address glowing on the screen, sent by a stranger. A stranger she'd just given intimate details of her life. A stranger who somehow already knew where she lived. Her hand shook as she checked the number she'd sent to. Her stomach dropped. She'd been so tired, so desperate, she hadn't double-checked. 1 digit off, just 1 goddamn digit separating Marcus's number from whoever this was. Who is this? She typed, then deleted it. How do you know my name? Delete. This isn't funny. Delete. Before she could settle on a response that didn't sound as terrified as she felt, another message appeared. Little Maya in the next room, 6 years old, chronic asthma. You're a good mother, Lena. Desperate, but good. That's why you're going to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The phone clattered onto the table. Lena's chair screeched against the linoleum as she shot to her feet, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Maya. This stranger knew about Maya. She rushed to her daughter's room, her socked feet silent on the worn carpet. Maya lay in her bed, the nebulizer mask covering the lower half of her small face, her chest rising and falling with visible effort. Her eyes were closed, dark lashes against pale cheeks, alive, safe, unaware that everything had just gone terribly, impossibly wrong. Lena checked the window locks, her fingers clumsy with panic. The glass was cold against her palm. Outside, the rain continued its assault on the city, the street below a blur of headlights and darkness. She couldn't see anything unusual. No one watching, no one waiting. But someone knew. Someone who could find her address in minutes. Someone who knew about her daughter. Her phone buzzed again in the kitchen. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Lena pulled Maya's door partially closed and returned to the kitchen on unsteady legs. Her phone screen was lit up with new messages. Don't call the police. Don't leave the building. Your ex-husband, Marcus Carter, stole something very valuable from me. You're going to help me get it back. You have 5 minutes to respond before I assume you're being difficult. I strongly advise against being difficult. The words swam before her eyes. Marcus stole something? Marcus was a low-level IT contractor who could barely hold down a job, who spent his weekends drinking with his buddies and pretending he didn't have responsibilities. Marcus was a deadbeat, a disappointment, a man who'd chosen his freedom over his family. But Marcus wasn't a thief. Not like this. Not from someone who could track down strangers in minutes. Was he? Lena's mind raced through the past year. The sudden divorce. Marcus's paranoia in those final months, constantly checking over his shoulder, changing passwords, refusing to tell her where he worked. The way he'd disappeared so completely afterward, leaving her with nothing but debt and a daughter who asked why Daddy didn't visit anymore. I don't know anything about what Marcus did, she typed back. I haven't spoken to him in months. I can't help you. The response was immediate. I don't need you to know anything. I need you to be something. Leverage. And right now, you're going to look out your window. Lena's skin crawled. Every instinct screamed at her not to follow instructions from this stranger, but her legs moved anyway, carrying her to the living room window. Her hands pulled back the faded curtain. The breath left her lungs. Below, on the rain-slicked street, 3 black SUVs had appeared. They sat silent and dark, windows tinted, engines running if the exhaust was any indication. No headlights, no movement, just waiting, waiting for her. No, Lena whispered. No, no, no. She stumbled backward, the curtain falling from her numb fingers. This couldn't be happening. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, in thriller novels, not to broke single mothers in Chicago. Her phone buzzed. Now you understand this is real. Now you understand I'm not someone you ignore. Marcus has information worth killing for. Other people are looking for it too. People less patient than me. If you want to keep Maya safe, you'll do exactly what I tell you. Someone will knock on your door in 2 minutes. Let them in. Don't scream. Don't make a scene. Your neighbors can't help you. If you run, I'll find you before you make it to the elevator. If you call the police, Maya becomes an orphan. 2 minutes. Choose wisely. Lena's vision blurred with tears. Her whole body trembled as she backed against the kitchen counter, the edge digging into her spine. 2 minutes. A stranger at her door in 2 minutes. Black SUVs full of who knows how many people waiting below. And Maya, sweet Maya, breathing through a plastic mask in the next room, completely dependent on a mother who'd just made a catastrophic mistake. The rational part of Lena's brain, the part that had gotten her through nursing school, through a difficult pregnancy, through divorce and single motherhood, tried to surface above the panic. She should call 911. She should grab Maya and barricade the door. She should do something other than stand here waiting for whoever was coming up to her apartment right now. But the other part, the part that had learned through bitter experience that sometimes there were no good choices, only less terrible ones, kept replaying the message. If you call the police, Maya becomes an orphan. Lena moved on autopilot to Maya's room. Her daughter's breathing had evened out slightly, the medication doing its job. She looked so small in that bed, so fragile. The thought of anything happening to her, of these strangers with their SUVs and their threats anywhere near her baby. A knock at the door. Not aggressive. Not the pounding of police or angry neighbors, just 3 measured knocks, calm and precise, like a colleague arriving for a scheduled meeting. Lena's heart felt like it might explode from her chest. She crossed to the door, each step an eternity. Through the peephole, she could see a man, tall, wearing an expensive-looking dark coat, water droplets glistening on his shoulders. He stood with perfect posture, hands visible and empty at his sides. He looked normal, professional, like someone who belonged in a boardroom, not making threats to single mothers in run-down apartment buildings. He tilted his head up slightly and Lena jerked back from the peephole. He'd known exactly where she was looking. He'd looked directly at her. Her phone buzzed one more time. Open the door, Lena. Her hand reached for the deadbolt. Everything in her screamed that this was wrong, that opening this door would change everything, that there would be no going back from whatever waited on the other side. But Maya was breathing in the next room, and 3 SUVs full of armed men were waiting below. The deadbolt clicked. The chain slid free. The doorknob turned cool and solid in her palm. Lena Carter opened the door. The man standing in her doorway was younger than she'd expected. Mid-30s, maybe. Handsome in that sharp-edged way that spoke of money and power. Dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble, all clean lines and calculating eyes. Those eyes swept over her once, a quick assessment that somehow felt invasive despite its brevity, before settling on her face with an intensity that made her want to step back. "Mrs. Carter." His voice was quiet, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. "May I come in?" The question was a formality. They both knew it. Lena stepped aside, hating herself for it, hating Marcus for putting her in this position, hating whatever twist of fate had led to that one wrong digit that had unraveled her entire world. The man entered with the fluid grace of someone who'd walked into 1,000 rooms and owned every one of them. He closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded to Lena like a cell door slamming shut. Water dripped from his coat onto her worn welcome mat. He surveyed her small apartment, the dishes in the sink, the mail scattered across the counter, Maya's drawings taped to the refrigerator, with no discernible expression. "My name is Adrian Varela." He pulled off black leather gloves, one finger at a time. "I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but I needed your full attention." Lena found her voice, though it came out smaller than she'd intended. "You threatened my daughter." I stated facts. Adrian's eyes met hers. "Your daughter is vulnerable. You are vulnerable. Marcus has made you both targets, though I doubt you knew that until tonight." He gestured slightly toward her living room. "May we sit? This conversation will take a few minutes, and you look like you're about to fall over." She was. Her knees felt like water, but sitting felt like surrender, like accepting this nightmare as her new reality. Adrian moved to her couch anyway, settling onto the edge with the careful positioning of someone who was always aware of exits and angles. He rested his hands on his knees and waited, patient as stone. Lena remained standing, her back to the kitchen, keeping herself between this stranger and Maya's room. "I don't know what Marcus did. I don't know anything." "I believe you." Adrian's agreement was somehow more unsettling than an accusation would have been. Marcus was always careful to keep his extracurricular activities separate from his home life. Smart, in some ways, but it means you're a complication he didn't account for. "What did he steal from you?" "Information. Specifically, encrypted files containing details of certain business operations that would be extremely valuable to my competitors." Adrian spoke like he was discussing stock portfolios, not whatever criminal enterprise he clearly ran. "Your ex-husband was hired to handle some IT security. He got greedy. He copied files he shouldn't have even known existed." Lena's hands clenched at her sides. "Marcus is an idiot, but he's not a criminal." "Everyone's a criminal with the right motivation." Adrian tilted his head slightly. "Your husband had gambling debts, serious ones. The kind that get you hurt if you don't pay them back quickly. The files he stole were his payment plan. Gambling debts." Lena felt something cold settle in her stomach. The divorce suddenly made more sense. Marcus's desperation in those final months, the way their savings had evaporated, the way he'd blamed her for everything, the way he'd run the moment the papers were signed. "I still don't know where he is," she said. "I don't know how to find him. I texted him tonight for the first time in 3 months, and clearly, I didn't even have the right number." "But he has yours." Adrian leaned back slightly. "And more importantly, he still cares about Maya. Absent father or not, she's leverage. Which is why I'm here instead of letting the Volkovs get to you first." "The Volkovs?" "Russian mob. They're the ones Marcus owes money to. They're also the ones who hired him to steal from me in the first place." Adrian's expression remained neutral. They thought they could use Marcus as a disposable pawn, get the files, and eliminate him once they had what they needed. But Marcus proved more clever than they anticipated. He disappeared with the data, and now everyone's looking for him. Lena's world was spinning. Russian mob, stolen files, her boring, disappointing ex-husband at the center of something that sounded like a bad spy movie. "Why are you telling me this?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Because you need to understand the situation completely to make an informed choice." Adrian stood in one smooth motion. "The The Volkovs will find you within 48 hours. They're not as well connected as I am, but they're motivated and they're violent. When they arrive, they'll take Maya. They'll use her to draw Marcus out. And once they have the files, they'll kill all three of you to tie up loose ends. The room swayed. Lena grabbed the counter edge to steady herself. My option, Adrian continued, is significantly less fatal. You come with me. I provide protection for you and Maya. We contact Marcus together, arrange a meeting. He returns the files. Everyone walks away alive. You expect me to believe you'll just let us go? Lena's laugh was sharp, brittle. You found me in minutes. You know everything about me. Why would you need me alive after you get what you want? Fair question. Adrian moved closer, close enough that Lena could smell expensive cologne and rain. The truth is, I don't need you dead. Dead people create problems, police investigations, questions, attention I don't want. You're a nurse, a single mother, a woman with no criminal record and no connections to my world. Letting you live costs me nothing. Killing you gains me nothing. He paused, those calculating eyes searching her face. But the Volkovs don't think like that. To them, you're a witness, a liability. They'll eliminate you on principle. And if I refuse, if I take Maya and run right now, then you'll make it approximately 12 blocks before my people stop you. Or you'll evade them and make it perhaps 2 days before the Volkovs find you. In a hotel somewhere, or at a friend's house, or hiding in some small town you think is safe. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact, not cruel, just honest. You're a civilian, Lena. You don't know how to disappear. You'll use credit cards, turn on your phone, contact someone from your old life. And that's when they'll find you. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she could protect her daughter, that she didn't need his help or his threats. But deep down, in the part of her that had stayed up countless nights worrying about money and Maya's health, and whether she was strong enough to do this alone, she knew he was right. A sound from Maya's room, a small cough, the creak of bed springs. Adrian's eyes flicked toward the doorway. She's awake. Don't! Lena stepped sideways, blocking his path. Don't go near her. I have no intention of frightening a sick child. His tone softened slightly, the first hint of something human beneath the cold calculation. But this is your reality now, Lena. Every decision you make affects her. The Volkovs won't wait for you to weigh your options. They won't give you time to process. They'll simply act. Mommy? Maya's small voice drifted from the bedroom. I need water. Lena's heart clenched. She looked at Adrian, at this stranger who'd invaded her home and shattered her world with a wrong number, and felt the full weight of her powerlessness. If I come with you, she said quietly, you promise Maya stays safe. You promise no one hurts her. You have my word. The word of a criminal. The bitterness in her voice was acidic. The word of a man who keeps his promises. Adrian pulled his phone from his pocket and held it out to her. On the screen was a photo, Lena and Maya at the park last summer, feeding ducks, both of them laughing. I've been watching you for 6 hours since the moment you sent that text. I know where Maya goes to school. I know her teacher's name. I know you volunteer at the hospital on weekends and that your mother lives in Florida and hasn't spoken to you since the divorce. He pocketed the phone. If I wanted to hurt your daughter, I would have already done it. But that's not who I am. I'm a businessman. I solve problems efficiently. Right now, you're not my problem. You're my solution. Help me get my files back, and you both walk away from this. I promise you that. Mommy? Maya called again, a slight wheeze in her voice. Lena felt the decision crystallize. There was no real choice here, had never been. From the moment she'd sent that text to the wrong number, this had been inevitable. I need to give her water and check her breathing, she said. Then I need to pack a bag. You have 15 minutes. Adrian moved to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly to look down at the street. The Volkovs have someone watching the building. They haven't made their move yet because they're not sure you're valuable enough to risk exposure, but that calculus will change by morning. Lena walked to Maya's room on wooden legs. Her daughter sat up in bed, the nebulizer mask hanging around her neck, her dark hair tangled from restless sleep. Hey, baby. Lena poured water from the pitcher on the nightstand, her hands shaking so badly she nearly spilled it. How are you feeling? Better? Maya took the cup and drank deeply, her small hands wrapped around the plastic. I had a bad dream. Just a dream. Lena smoothed her daughter's hair, memorizing the feel of it between her fingers, the weight of Maya's head against her palm. Listen, sweetie. We're going to take a little trip tonight. A last-minute adventure. Maya's eyes widened. In the rain? In the rain. We're going to go somewhere safe, where the heat works better and you can breathe easier. The lies came smoothly, desperately. But I need you to be very brave and very quiet, okay? Can you do that for Mommy? Is Daddy coming? The question hit Lena like a physical blow. No, baby, just us. And the man in the living room? Lena's blood froze. You saw him? I heard talking. Maya set down the cup. He sounds scary. Lena struggled for words that wouldn't add to her daughter's fear while not being a complete lie. He's going to help us stay safe, but I need you to trust Mommy right now. Can you do that? Maya studied her face with the two knowing eyes of a child who'd already seen her parents' marriage crumble, who'd watched her mother cry when she thought no one was looking, who'd learned early that life wasn't always fair or kind. Okay, she said softly. Lena pulled her close, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo and medicine, trying not to let Maya feel how badly she was shaking. I love you. More than anything in this world, remember that, no matter what happens. I love you too, Mommy. They stayed like that for a moment that Lena wanted to stretch into eternity. Then she pulled back, wiping her eyes before Maya could see the tears. Let's pack your favorite things, and bring your inhaler, just in case. While Maya gathered her stuffed rabbit and her sketch pad, Lena threw clothes into a duffel bag. Her movements were mechanical, her mind still reeling. She grabbed medications, Maya's inhaler, a few family photos she couldn't bear to leave behind. The detritus of their small life, now being hastily shoved into a bag because a man in her living room had given her 15 minutes to abandon everything she knew. When they emerged from the bedroom, Adrian was exactly where she'd left him, still gazing out the window like a statue. He turned at their approach, his eyes softening fractionally when they landed on Maya. Hello, he said gently. You must be Maya. Maya pressed against Lena's side, one hand clutching her rabbit. She didn't respond. She's shy, Lena said, her arm around Maya's shoulders. Smart. Adrian moved away from the window, giving them space. Being cautious around strangers is wise. He looked at Lena. We need to leave now. The Volkov's watcher just got on his phone. They're making their move. Panic spiked through her. Now? They're coming now? Within minutes. Adrian opened the apartment door, checking the hallway. We'll take the service stairs. My people are waiting in the alley. This is insane. But Lena was already moving, Maya's hand tight in hers, the duffel bag over her shoulder. This is completely insane. Yes, Adrian agreed. But it's also your life now. Come. They moved quickly through the hallway, Lena's heart pounding with every step. The building was quiet at this hour, most residents already asleep or lost in their own problems. Mrs. Chen's television still murmured through her door. The Robinsons had stopped arguing. Normal life continuing, oblivious to the drama unfolding in apartment 4B. Adrian led them to the service stairs, the ones maintenance used when the elevator broke. The stairwell was dim, the fluorescent lights flickering, and their footsteps echoed against concrete walls as they descended. Maya stayed pressed against Lena's side, silent but for the slight wheeze in her breathing. On the second-floor landing, Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, his jaw tightening fractionally. 3 men just entered the building, front entrance. He looked at Lena. We need to move faster. They took the stairs 2 at a time, Lena half carrying Maya, her lungs burning with fear and exertion. Behind them, above them, she could hear the distant sound of heavy footsteps in the main stairwell. Voices speaking in a language she didn't recognize. The Volkovs. They were actually here, actually hunting her. They reached the ground floor and Adrian pushed open the service exit, leading them into the alley. The rain hit Lena's face like cold needles. A black sedan waited with its engine running, rear door already open. 2 men stood beside it, both wearing dark suits and earpieces, both radiating the same dangerous competence as Adrian. In, Adrian said, And it wasn't a request. Lena bundled Maya into the car, climbing in after her. Adrian slid in from the other side, and before Lena could even process what was happening, they were moving. The sedan pulled smoothly out of the alley, headlights cutting through the rain. Through the rear window, Lena could see her apartment building receding. On the third floor, lights were on in her apartment. Shadows moved against the windows. "They're inside," she whispered. "Finding nothing," Adrian said calmly. "By the time they realize you're gone, we'll be too far away to follow." Maya was shivering, whether from cold or fear Lena couldn't tell. She pulled her daughter close, wrapping both arms around her, and stared out at the city streaming past. The Chicago she knew transformed in minutes into hostile territory, full of threats and shadows and people who wanted to use her daughter as leverage. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." Adrian was already on his phone, speaking in rapid, clipped sentences to someone. "Somewhere they can't touch you." And then? He lowered the phone, his eyes meeting hers across the dark interior of the sedan. "Then we prepare, we plan, and we draw Marcus out of whatever hole he's hiding in." What if he doesn't come? What if he doesn't care enough about us to risk himself? He will. Adrian's certainty was absolute. Because despite everything, Marcus is still Maya's father. And men like him, when pushed far enough, do try to protect what's theirs, even if they've been terrible at it before. Lena looked down at Maya, who'd gone silent, her small body tense against her mother's side. This morning, her biggest worry had been paying for medication. Tonight, she was fleeing armed men through Chicago rain while a crime lord sat across from her, calmly planning how to use her as bait. "I should never have sent that text," she said quietly. "No," Adrian agreed. "You shouldn't have. But you did. And now we both have to deal with the consequences." The sedan turned onto the highway, accelerating into the night. Behind them, the city lights began to fade. Ahead, only darkness and rain and the unknown. Lena held Maya tighter and tried not to think about what came next. Tried not to wonder if Adrian's promises were worth anything. Tried not to calculate the odds that she and her daughter would actually survive whatever game Marcus had dragged them into. But the numbers were there anyway, cold and unforgiving in the back of her mind. And they weren't good. The car drove on through the storm, carrying them away from everything familiar, toward a future that Lena Carter hadn't chosen and couldn't control. All because of one wrong number. One moment of desperation. One mistake that had changed absolutely everything. In the front seat, the driver spoke quietly into a radio. Adrian responded in that language Lena didn't recognize, his tone businesslike. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on the windows. And Maya, sweet Maya, finally spoke for the first time since leaving the apartment. "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" Lena looked at her daughter's upturned face, at those eyes full of trust and fear and hope, and felt something inside her crack. But she didn't let it break. Not yet. Not when Maya needed her to be strong. "Yes, baby," she said, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "We're going to be okay." She just wished she believed it. The sedan's headlights carved through the darkness as they left the city behind. Maya had finally fallen asleep against Lena's shoulder, her breathing still slightly labored but steady enough. Lena stroked her daughter's hair with mechanical precision, her eyes fixed on the rain-streaked window, watching Chicago dissolve into suburbs, then into stretches of empty highway flanked by skeletal trees. Adrian hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. He sat with his phone in hand, occasionally typing messages, his face illuminated by the screen's cold glow. The two men in the front seat remained equally silent, professional and detached. The only sounds were the engine's hum, the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers, and Maya's soft breathing. Lena's mind wouldn't stop racing. Every decision she'd made tonight felt both inevitable and insane. She'd gotten into a car with a criminal. She'd brought her daughter into whatever dark world Marcus had stumbled into. She'd abandoned their apartment, their life, everything familiar, based on the word of a man who'd threatened them less than an hour ago. But what choice had she really had? The question circled endlessly, finding no answer. "We're almost there," Adrian said quietly, breaking the silence. He pocketed his phone and looked at her. "How's she doing?" "Sleeping." Lena's voice was hoarse. "Where is there exactly?" "A property I own about 40 miles outside the city. Private. Secure. The Volkovs won't find it. He paused. You'll both be safe. Until you need us to not be safe anymore. The bitterness crept back into her tone. Until it's time to dangle us in front of Marcus. I won't put Maya in danger. Adrian's expression was unreadable in the darkness. She stays at the estate, protected. You're the only one Marcus needs to see. How generous. Lena looked down at her daughter's sleeping face. And what happens when Marcus realizes this is a trap? What happens when your plan goes wrong? It won't. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it sent a chill down Lena's spine. This was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. Consequences be damned. The sedan turned off the highway onto a smaller road, then onto a private drive marked only by a discreet call box. Trees pressed close on either side, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out what little moonlight filtered through the clouds. They drove for another 5 minutes before the trees opened up to reveal a sprawling estate. Lena's breath caught despite herself. The house, no, mansion, rose against the night sky like something out of a magazine. Modern architecture blended with classical elements, all stone and glass and elegant lines. Warm light spilled from tall windows. Manicured grounds stretched in every direction, disappearing into darkness. It looked like the kind of place where normal people's problems didn't exist. The sedan pulled up to the front entrance, where another suited man waited with an umbrella. Adrian exited first, speaking briefly with the man before opening Lena's door himself. "Let me carry her," he offered, reaching for Maya. "No." Lena's arms tightened protectively around her daughter. "I've got her." Adrian stepped back without argument, simply holding the umbrella over them as Lena climbed out of the car with Maya in her arms. Her daughter stirred slightly but didn't wake, her small body dead weight against Lena's chest. Inside, the house was even more impressive. The entrance hall featured marble floors and a sweeping staircase. Abstract art hung on the walls. Everything was pristine, expensive, designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. A woman appeared from a side hallway, older, perhaps 60, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore a simple but well-tailored dress and carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who'd spent decades managing households like this. "Mrs. Carter," she said warmly, her accent vaguely European. "I'm Elena. I manage the household. Let me show you to your rooms." "This is Lena and her daughter Maya," Adrian said. "Make sure they have everything they need, particularly Maya's medical supplies." Elena's expression softened as she looked at the sleeping child in Lena's arms. "Of course, please follow me." Lena glanced back at Adrian, who'd already turned away, speaking in low tones with one of his men. Just like that, she'd been dismissed, handed off to the staff like luggage to be stored. She followed Elena up the staircase, down a hallway lined with more art, to a suite of rooms that would have comfortably fit Lena's entire apartment twice over. The bedroom featured a king-size bed with crisp white linens. An attached sitting room held comfortable furniture arranged around a fireplace. Through another door, she could see a bathroom with marble countertops and a soaking tub. "The adjoining room is set up for the little one," Elena explained, gesturing to a door on the far wall. "I took the liberty of having it prepared when Mr. Varela called ahead. There's a proper bed, some toys, and I made sure we had a nebulizer and medication similar to what you use." Lena stared at her. "How did you know what we use?" Elena's smile was gentle, understanding. "Mr. Varela is very thorough. I hope you'll find everything satisfactory." The casual invasion of privacy should have angered Lena. Instead, she just felt numb. Of course, Adrian had known what medications Maya needed. He'd probably known before he ever knocked on her door. She carried Maya into the smaller room, which had indeed been transformed into a child's paradise. A bed with a pink comforter, stuffed animals arranged on a window seat, a bookshelf stocked with children's books. It looked like someone's idea of what a little girl would want, impersonal but expensive. Lena laid Maya down gently, tucking the covers around her, placing her battered stuffed rabbit beside her pillow. Her daughter's face relaxed in sleep, peaceful in a way she rarely was when awake and struggling to breathe. "There's a monitor," Elena said softly from the doorway, pointing to a small device on the nightstand. "You'll hear if she wakes, and there's a panic button as well, just in case." "In case of what?" Lena straightened, exhaustion and adrenaline warring in her system. In case you need anything at all. Elena's expression remained neutral. This is a safe house, Mrs. Carter, but I understand you've had a very frightening evening. The buttons are simply precautions. Lena wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Panic buttons in a crime lord's mansion. Medical supplies procured before she'd even agreed to come. A room designed for a child who'd been ripped from her home by threats and violence. I'll have some food sent up, Elena continued, and tea, if you'd like, or something stronger. Tea is fine. Lena's voice sounded distant to her own ears. Thank you. Elena nodded and withdrew, closing the door with a soft click. Alone in the opulent suite, Lena finally allowed herself to sink onto the edge of the massive bed. Her legs trembled. Her hands shook. The adrenaline that had carried her through the past hour was draining away, leaving only bone-deep fear and exhaustion. She looked around at the beautiful prison she'd been placed in and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. She opened the door to find a young man with a tray, a pot of tea, some sandwiches, fruit. He set it down on the sitting room table with a polite nod and left without a word. Lena poured tea with shaking hands, the familiar ritual somehow grounding. The cup was fine china, probably worth more than her monthly rent. The tea was some exotic blend she didn't recognize. Everything here spoke of wealth so casual it didn't need to announce itself. She'd just taken her first sip when another knock sounded. This time it was Adrian, still in his expensive coat, his hair slightly damp from the rain. May I come in? Lena wanted to say no, wanted to slam the door in his face and pretend this was all a nightmare she'd wake from. But she was a guest in his house, a prisoner in all but name, and they both knew it. She stepped aside. Adrian entered the sitting room, his eyes scanning the space with the same assessing quality he'd used in her apartment, checking for threats, exits, vulnerabilities, always calculating. Maya's settled? He asked. She's sleeping. Lena remained standing, her arms crossed. You had a bedroom prepared for her. You had her medications ready. How long have you been planning this? Since this afternoon. Adrian moved to the window, looking out at the dark grounds. When my IT security flagged an attempt to access certain files from an external location, when we traced it back to Marcus Carter and started building a profile on everyone connected to him. So this was always the plan. Grab me and my daughter. The plan was to locate Marcus and retrieve my property. You became relevant when he proved impossible to find. Adrian turned to face her. Your text was serendipitous. It accelerated the timeline. Serendipitous? Lena's laugh was sharp. My worst mistake is your lucky break. I won't apologize for taking advantage of an opportunity. His tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. This is my business. I solve problems. Marcus created a problem. You're the solution. I'm a person. Maya is a person. We're not chess pieces in whatever game you're playing. No, Adrian agreed. But you're civilians caught in a situation you didn't create and don't understand, which is why you need my protection. The Volkovs would have found you by tomorrow. They would have taken Maya. They would have hurt her to make Marcus cooperate. Is that what you prefer? Lena's jaw clenched. You're not the hero in this story. You're just another criminal who wants something. I never claimed to be a hero. He moved closer, his presence filling the room. But I am the criminal who's keeping you alive right now. And unlike the Volkovs, I keep my word. Help me get my files back, and you both walk away. Free, safe. With enough money to start over somewhere Marcus can never find you. The offer hung in the air between them. Lena wanted to reject it on principle, but the practical part of her brain, the part that had kept her and Maya afloat through divorce and poverty and 1,000 small catastrophes, was already calculating. If Adrian kept his word, she'd be free of Marcus forever, free of the danger he'd brought into their lives, free to give Maya the fresh start she deserved, if he kept his word. How do I know you won't just kill us when this is over? She asked quietly. Loose ends, like you said. Because I'm showing you my house, my staff, my face. Adrian's expression was sincere, or at least a convincing facsimile of it. If I planned to kill you, I'd have kept you blindfolded. I'd have used an intermediary. The fact that you're here in my actual home, seeing my actual life, that's insurance for both of us. You can't identify me if I let you go. I don't create unnecessary risk. It was twisted logic, but it made a certain sense. Criminals who planned to kill witnesses didn't usually invite them into their personal spaces, didn't introduce them to their household staff, didn't show their faces. Unless that was exactly what he wanted her to think. Lena's head hurt. She set down her teacup before she could drop it. I want to call Marcus, tonight. Get this over with. Tomorrow, Adrian countered, you're exhausted, you need sleep, a clear head, and we need to plan the approach carefully. Why? What's there to plan? I call him, tell him to meet me, you grab him. Simple. Nothing about this is simple. Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned slightly, then pocketed it again. Marcus is paranoid. If you call him out of nowhere, after months of silence, demanding a meeting, he'll know something's wrong. We need to make it believable. We need to give him a reason to show up that doesn't trigger his suspicions. Like what? Like Maya being sick. Like you being desperate. Like you needing him for something only he can provide. Adrian's eyes met hers. We play on his guilt, his responsibility, the part of him that still cares, even if he's terrible at showing it. Lena's stomach churned. You want me to use Maya as bait? I want you to tell Marcus the truth, that his daughter needs him, that you can't do this alone anymore. Men like Marcus, they run from responsibility until it's presented as a crisis. Then their ego demands they step up, be the hero, prove they're not as worthless as everyone thinks. It was manipulative, calculated, and probably exactly what would work on Marcus, who'd always cared more about appearing to be a good father than actually being one. And when he shows up, my people will be there. We'll recover the files. Marcus will be given a choice, cooperate and live, or resist and face consequences. Adrian's tone suggested the consequences would be severe. Either way, you and Maya are out of it. You'll never see him again. Just like that. One meeting, and it's over. Just like that. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to think this nightmare could end as cleanly as he suggested, but life had taught her that nothing was ever that simple, especially where Marcus was involved. I need to think about this, she said finally. Adrian nodded. Tomorrow morning we'll discuss the details. For now, get some rest. You're safe here. No one can touch you. He moved toward the door, then paused. Lena, I know you don't trust me. You'd be foolish if you did. But I meant what I said in your apartment. I keep my promises. Help me with this, and you're free. That's not a threat. It's a guarantee. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Lena stood alone in the beautiful room, surrounded by luxury that felt like a cage, and tried to process everything that had happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been worried about medical bills and Marcus's silence. Now she was in a crime lord's mansion, planning to betray her ex-husband to save her daughter. She checked on Maya, who still slept peacefully, oblivious to the danger swirling around them. Lena brushed her fingers across her daughter's forehead, feeling the warmth of her skin, the reality of her presence. Whatever it took to keep Maya safe, that was all that mattered, even if it meant making deals with devils. Lena tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw black SUVs and shadowy figures and Adrian's calculating gaze. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete. She was used to thin walls and street noise and the constant low-level anxiety of wondering if she'd locked the door properly. Here, the quiet felt oppressive. She gave up around 4 in the morning and went to sit in the window seat, looking out at the grounds. Security lights illuminated pathways through gardens she could barely make out in the darkness. Somewhere out there she knew Adrian's people were patrolling, watching, protecting their employer's investment. Because that's what she was. An investment. A means to an end. The sky was just beginning to lighten when Maya woke, confused and frightened in the unfamiliar room. Lena rushed to her side, gathering her close, murmuring reassurances that felt hollow even as she spoke them. Where are we? Maya's voice was small, her breathing already starting to wheeze. Somewhere safe, baby, remember? I told you we were taking an adventure. Lena reached for the inhaler on the nightstand, the one Elena had somehow procured that perfectly matched their usual prescription. Let's take your medicine first. Maya cooperated. Her small hands wrapped around Lena's wrist as she took the measured puffs. When her breathing eased, she looked around the room with wide eyes. This isn't our house. No, we're staying here for a little while, just until some grown-up things get sorted out. Because of Daddy? The question pierced Lena's heart. Maya had stopped asking about Marcus months ago, had seemed to accept his absence with the resignation of a child who'd learned not to expect too much. For her to bring him up now. Yes, Lena said honestly. She'd never lied to Maya about the big things. Because of Daddy, but you don't need to worry about that. Mommy's handling it. Is he in trouble? Sort of. How did you explain to a 6-year-old that her father had stolen from dangerous people? That her mother was now trapped in a crime lord's mansion, planning to lure him into a trap? But it's going to be okay. We're just going to help fix things, and then we'll go home. Maya studied her face with those two knowing eyes. You're scared. A little, Lena admitted, but I'm more worried about keeping you safe. And you are safe here. I promise. A knock at the door interrupted them. Elena's voice called softly. Mrs. Carter? I have breakfast if you're awake. Lena opened the door to find the older woman with another tray. This time it held scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and orange juice. There was even a small plate with a smiley face made of berries. I thought the little one might be hungry, Elena said, her eyes kind as they landed on Maya. Hello, sweetheart. I'm Elena. What's your name? Maya pressed against Lena's leg but managed a quiet, Maya. What a beautiful name. Elena set the tray down in the sitting room. I have a granddaughter about your age. She loves the gardens here. Maybe later, if your mama says it's okay, I could show you. Maya looked up at Lena questioningly. Maybe, Lena said, not wanting to commit to anything. Let's have breakfast first. Elena nodded and withdrew, leaving them alone with food that smelled infinitely better than anything Lena usually managed to pull together. Maya ate with the enthusiasm of a child who'd been surviving on budget meals and stress, and Lena picked at her own plate, her appetite suppressed by anxiety. They'd just finished when Adrian appeared in the doorway. He'd changed clothes since last night, now wearing dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked refreshed, alert, every inch the successful businessman rather than the criminal who'd threatened her 12 hours ago. His eyes went to Maya, softening slightly. Good morning. Maya stared at him, then looked at Lena with a question in her eyes. This is Mr. Varela, Lena said, the name feeling strange on her tongue. He owns this house. Adrian is fine. He stayed in the doorway, not entering, respecting the space. How are you feeling this morning, Maya? Okay, she whispered. I'm glad to hear it. He looked at Lena. When you're ready, I'd like to discuss our next steps. Elena can stay with Maya while we talk. Lena's arms instinctively tightened around her daughter. I'm not leaving her alone. Elena has been with me for 15 years. She raised 3 children of her own. Maya will be perfectly safe. Adrian's tone was patient but firm. We need to talk strategy, Lena. Privately. Every instinct screamed at Lena not to let Maya out of her sight, but she also knew they needed to plan whatever came next. And having that conversation in front of her daughter wasn't an option. 30 minutes, she said, not a minute longer. Agreed. Elena appeared as if summoned, her smile warm as she addressed Maya. How would you like to help me bake cookies? I have chocolate chips. Maya looked at Lena, uncertainty written across her small face. It's okay, baby, Lena said, even though nothing about this was okay. I'll be right downstairs. If you need me, you tell Miss Elena and she'll get me. Okay? Okay, Maya said softly. Lena kissed her forehead, breathing in her daughter's scent, memorizing the feel of her. Then she forced herself to stand, to follow Adrian out of the room, to leave Maya behind with a stranger in a house full of criminals. The walk to Adrian's office felt like miles. They passed more art, more evidence of wealth accumulated through means Lena didn't want to think about. Staff members nodded respectfully as they passed, their faces neutral, professional. Adrian's office was exactly what she'd expected. Large, masculine, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. One wall was covered in monitors showing security camera feeds from around the property. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. Sit. Lena remained standing. You said 30 minutes. Start talking. Adrian's mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. You're going to call Marcus this morning. Tell him Maya's in the hospital. Severe asthma attack. They're keeping her for observation, but you can't afford it. You need money, immediately. He won't believe I'd call him for that. I've managed alone this long. Which is exactly why it'll work. You're desperate enough to swallow your pride. You have no other options. Adrian pulled out his phone, brought up a contact. This is Marcus's current number. We've been monitoring it since yesterday. Lena stared at the number on the screen. So close. After months of silence, her ex-husband was just 10 digits away. What if he doesn't answer? He will. He's been waiting for the other shoe to drop since he stole those files. He'll want to know what you know. Adrian set the phone on the desk between them. You'll tell him you need $5,000 today, in cash. You'll suggest meeting at Lincoln Park near the boathouse, 2 o'clock. And when he shows up? My people will be in position. You'll meet him, keep him talking for 5 minutes. That's all I need. 5 minutes to confirm he has the files and to acquire them. You mean kidnap him? I mean, have a conversation, a negotiation. He cooperates, he leaves with his life, and a strong suggestion to disappear permanently. Adrian's eyes were cold now, all business. He refuses. Things become more complicated. Lena's hands clenched at her sides. And I'm supposed to just stand there while you do whatever it is you do to him? You're supposed to walk away. Get back in the car, my driver will have waiting. Return here to Maya. By the time you arrive, this will all be over. It sounded so clean, so simple. But Lena had learned nothing in life was ever that straightforward. What if the Volkovs show up? What if they're watching Marcus, too? They are. Which is why we're moving today before they can finalize their own plans. Adrian walked to the windows, hands in his pockets. The Volkovs are cautious, methodical. They'll spend another day or two gathering intelligence before they act. We don't have that luxury of time. Because the longer Marcus has those files, the more dangerous he becomes. Exactly. Adrian turned back to face her. Every hour he has that information is another hour he could sell it to someone else. Another hour the Volkovs could grab him first. Another hour you and Maya remain targets. The logic was inescapable. Still, Lena's mind raced for alternatives, for some way out of this that didn't involve betraying Marcus, didn't involve putting herself in the middle of whatever violent confrontation Adrian was planning. She found none. After this is done, she said slowly, you let us go. New identities, like you said. Somewhere Marcus and the Volkovs can't find us. You have my word. The word of a criminal. The word of a man who's built an empire on reputation and reliability. Adrian's gaze was steady. I don't stay in power by betraying people who help me, Lena. I stay in power by rewarding loyalty and punishing threats. You're being loyal. Marcus is the threat. The math is simple. Lena wanted to argue, to find fault in his reasoning, but exhaustion and fear and the weight of impossible choices pressed down on her until she could barely think straight. Fine, she whispered. I'll make the call. Adrian picked up his phone, unlocked it, and handed it to her. Now, while your fear is still fresh, it'll make you sound more desperate. Lena took the phone with shaking hands. The number glowed on the screen, Marcus's current contact. 3 months of silence stood between her and the button that would call him. She pressed it before she could lose her nerve. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Answer, Adrian murmured. He's checking the caller ID, deciding if it's worth the risk. 4 rings, 5. Then, hello? Marcus's voice hit Lena like a physical blow, familiar and foreign all at once. The voice that had promised to love her forever, that had whispered sweet things in the dark, that had later grown cold and angry and distant. Marcus, her voice cracked. It's Lena. Silence on the other end. Then cautiously. How did you get this number? She looked at Adrian, who nodded encouragingly. It doesn't matter. Marcus, I need help. It's Maya. What about Maya? His tone shifted, genuine concern breaking through the wariness. She's in the hospital, St. Catherine's. Bad asthma attack. They want to keep her overnight for observation, but I can't. Lena's voice broke, and it wasn't entirely an act. I can't afford it, Marcus. I need $5,000 today. 5,000. He sounded shocked. Lena, I don't have that kind of money just lying around. You owe me 3 months of child support. You owe her years of being an actual father. Anger flared hot and real in Lena's chest. She's your daughter, Marcus. She can't breathe, and I need money for the hospital, and you're going to help me. For once in your useless life, you're going to help me. Another pause. Lena could practically hear him thinking, calculating, weighing risks. How do I know this isn't a trap? He asked quietly. Her heart stopped. Adrian's expression sharpened. A trap? Lena forced confusion into her voice. Marcus, what are you talking about? Our daughter is in the hospital. I'm asking you for money. That's all this is. You haven't called me in months. Suddenly you have my new number and you need exactly $5,000, and I'm supposed to believe I got your number from Sarah. Lena grasped at the lie, making it up as she went. Remember Sarah from your old office? I ran into her at the grocery store last week. She felt bad about the divorce, slipped me your new contact. I've been too proud to use it until now, but Maya needs you, and I don't care about pride anymore. I care about keeping our daughter alive. The silence stretched. Lena held her breath. St. Catherine's? Marcus said finally. Yes. Let me think about it. There's nothing to think about. Lena's desperation wasn't feigned anymore. This had to work. It had to. Marcus, please, I'm begging you. Meet me this afternoon, 2 o'clock, Lincoln Park by the boathouse. Bring the money and you can even come see Maya afterward if you want. Just please help me. I don't know, Lena. She asked about you yesterday. The lie came easily, horribly. She asked if Daddy was coming to see her in the hospital. What am I supposed to tell her, Marcus? That you couldn't be bothered? That even when she's sick and scared, you're still too much of a coward to show up? The words hung in the air between them, sharp and cutting. That's not fair, Marcus said, his voice tight. Nothing about this is fair, but she's 6 years old and she's in a hospital bed and she wants her father. Lena's eyes burned with unshed tears. 2 o'clock, Lincoln Park. Be there. She ended the call before he could refuse, before her voice could break completely, before the weight of what she'd just done could crush her. Adrian took the phone gently from her trembling hands. Well done. Lena turned away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. I just used my daughter's illness to manipulate her father into a trap. Don't you dare tell me that was well done. You did what was necessary to protect her. Adrian's voice was surprisingly gentle. Marcus created this situation. You're simply dealing with the consequences as best you can. There's no shame in that. Isn't there? Lena's laugh was bitter. I'm as bad as you now, lying, manipulating, using people. No, you're a mother trying to survive. That's different. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to think there was still a moral difference between her desperate choices and Adrian's calculated cruelty, but the line felt increasingly blurred. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now we prepare. My people will scout Lincoln Park, establish positions. You'll wear a wire so we can hear the conversation. When you arrive at 2 o'clock, Marcus will already be surrounded. He just won't know it. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Adrian's confidence was absolute. This is what I do, Lena. Trust me. Trust. Such a simple word for such an impossible request. But what choice did she have? None. She'd had no choices from the moment she'd sent that wrong text. Every step since had been inevitable, a path laid out by Marcus's mistakes and Adrian's ruthless efficiency. I want to go back to Maya now, she said. Of course. Adrian walked her to the door. Try to relax this morning. Spend time with your daughter. At 2 o'clock, this all ends. Lena left without responding, climbing the stairs back to the suite where Maya and Elena were indeed baking cookies, the warm scent of chocolate filling the air. Her daughter looked up with a flour-dusted smile, so innocent, so unaware of what Lena had just set in motion. Mommy, look! I made a star! Lena crossed the room and pulled Maya into a fierce hug, cookies and flour, and consequences be damned. It's beautiful, baby, she whispered into Maya's hair. Everything you do is beautiful. And she held on tight, counting down the hours until 2 o'clock, when she would betray her daughter's father and pray that a criminal's promise would somehow keep them both safe. The hours crawled by like wounded things. Lena tried to focus on Maya, on the cookies they decorated with colored frosting, on the stories Elena read in her soothing, accented voice. But her mind kept circling back to 2 o'clock, to Marcus walking into Adrian's trap, to all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. At noon, Elena took Maya to see the gardens as promised, and Lena stood at the window watching them walk the stone paths below. Her daughter looked so small next to Elena's tall frame, so fragile in the bright afternoon sunlight that had burned away the morning clouds. Maya pointed at something in the flower beds, her mouth moving with questions Lena couldn't hear. Elena bent down, patient and kind, answering with the practiced ease of a grandmother. For a moment, Lena allowed herself to imagine a different life, one where this was normal, where Maya grew up in places like this, safe and protected, where money wasn't a constant crushing weight and the future held promise instead of dread. Then she remembered how they'd gotten here, and the fantasy dissolved like smoke. Adrian appeared in the doorway behind her. She didn't turn around. "It's time to prepare," he said quietly. Lena's stomach nodded. "Maya can't know what's happening." "Elena will keep her occupied. She's done this before." The casual way he said it made Lena's skin crawl. How many other people had Adrian manipulated, used, discarded? How many had stood in this very room looking out at these same gardens, preparing to betray someone they once loved? She followed him back to his office, where 2 men waited. One held a small device that looked like a black button. The other had a laptop open, showing what appeared to be mapping software with red dots scattered across an image of Lincoln Park. "This is Rivera and Chen," Adrian introduced them. "Rivera handles communications. Chen coordinates field operations." Both men nodded at Lena with professional detachment. She was just another assignment to them, another problem to solve. Rivera approached with the small device. "This is a wire. It'll attach to your clothing here." He pointed to a spot just below her collarbone. "Transmits everything you say within a 30-foot radius. We'll hear every word." "What if Marcus searches me?" Lena asked. "What if he suspects something?" "He won't," Adrian said with absolute certainty. "Marcus is paranoid about being followed, about electronic surveillance on his devices. But he trusts you, or at least he trusts that you're desperate enough to not be working with anyone. His arrogance will be his downfall." Rivera attached the wire with practiced efficiency, his hands impersonal and quick. The device felt alien against Lena's skin, a cold reminder that she was now part of Adrian's machinery. Chen turned his laptop so she could see the screen. "You'll enter the park from the north entrance here. Walk to the boathouse along this path. We'll have 8 people positioned throughout the area. 4 visible as civilians, joggers, tourists, people on benches. 4 concealed in vehicles at these access points." He indicated the red dots. "The moment Marcus arrives, we'll have him boxed in." "What if he brings backup?" Lena heard herself ask. "What if he's not alone?" "Then we adapt," Adrian said. "But Marcus has been operating solo since he stole the files. He doesn't trust anyone enough to involve them. He'll come alone." "You sound very sure." "I am. I've been studying Marcus Carter for the past 18 hours. I know how he thinks, what he fears, where his weaknesses are." Adrian's eyes met hers. "His greatest weakness is his ego. He'll want to play the hero, prove he's not the failure you've made him feel like. He'll show up with that money, and he'll think he's in control." The clinical dissection of her ex-husband should have bothered Lena more than it did. Instead, she felt a strange sense of vindication. Marcus had abandoned them, left them to struggle, stolen from dangerous people without considering how it might blow back on his family. If anyone deserved to be outmaneuvered and trapped, it was him. "What do I say when I see him?" she asked. "Keep it simple. Thank him for coming. Take the money. Ask about his life, where he's been staying. The longer you keep him talking, the more time we have to confirm he has the files." Adrian pulled out a photo, laid it on the desk. It showed a small black USB drive. "This is what we're looking for. Marcus will have it on him. In a pocket, probably, or on a keychain. Something he can access quickly if he needs to run." Lena stared at the tiny device. So much death and danger over something that could fit in the palm of her hand. "When you have the money, you'll say, Maya will be so relieved." Adrian's voice was firm, commanding. "That's the signal. My people move in, and you walk away. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. Just walk to the north parking lot where my driver will be waiting. And Marcus? Won't be your problem anymore. The finality in Adrian's tone left no room for questions. At 1:15, Lena was in the back of a black sedan, different from the one that had brought them here last night. The driver was a silent man named Torres who'd been given his instructions and seemed content to execute them without conversation. Lena was grateful for the silence. Her thoughts were loud enough. The wire pressed against her skin like an accusation. She wore jeans and a simple jacket, clothes that would blend in at the park, that would make her look like what she was, a tired mother trying to hold her life together. The envelope of cash Adrian had given her sat in her purse. $5,000 in crisp bills, payment for a daughter's medical emergency that didn't exist. The lies were piling up so fast Lena could barely keep track of them anymore. They reached Lincoln Park at 1:45. Torres drove past the north entrance twice, circling the perimeter, giving Chen's people time to get into position. Lena saw nothing unusual, just ordinary people enjoying an autumn afternoon. Joggers, dog walkers, a man reading a newspaper on a bench, a woman pushing a stroller. Any of them could be Adrian's, or the Volkovs, or just innocent civilians about to witness something terrible. "It's time," Torres said, pulling into the north lot. Lena's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to steady herself. "You'll be fine," Torres offered, the first words he'd spoken since they'd left the estate. "Boss knows what he's doing." Such comfort, such reassurance. Lena got out of the car and started walking. The park was beautiful in that crisp way. Autumn made everything beautiful. Gold and red leaves scattered across the grass. The lake beyond the boathouse reflected the sky like polished glass. Children's laughter drifted from a distant playground, the world continuing on, oblivious and indifferent to her private catastrophe. She followed the path Chen had shown her, her steps automatic, her mind racing. With every person she passed, she wondered if they were watching, reporting back to Adrian, weapons concealed beneath their casual clothing. The boathouse appeared ahead, white and Victorian, almost cheerful. Benches surrounded it, most empty at this hour. Lena chose one with a clear view of the approaching paths and sat down, her purse clutched in her lap. 1:58. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. The wire against her chest seemed to burn. She resisted the urge to touch it, to confirm it was still there, still transmitting. 1:59. A figure appeared on the eastern path. Tall, familiar gait, hands shoved in the pockets of a jacket Lena recognized from their marriage. Marcus looked thinner than she remembered, more haggard. His hair was longer, unkempt. He walked with the hunched shoulders of a man carrying weight he couldn't put down. 2:00. Marcus's eyes found her across the distance. He stopped for a moment, hesitating, his body language screaming suspicion. Lena forced herself to stand, to raise a hand in greeting, to play the part of desperate ex-wife grateful he'd shown up. He approached slowly, scanning the area, checking faces, looking for threats. When he was 10 feet away, he stopped. "Lena." "Marcus." Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "Thank you for coming." "Where's Maya?" His eyes were hard, searching her face for deception. "If she's really in the hospital, why aren't you with her?" "They're running tests. I needed to meet you, get the money, get back before visiting hours end." The lies came smoothly now. "She's okay. Stable, but scared." Marcus's jaw worked. He pulled an envelope from his jacket, held it up but didn't offer it yet. 5,000, like you asked. Now tell me the truth. What's really going on?" "I told you the truth. Maya had an asthma attack." "Bullshit!" He took a step closer, his voice low and urgent. "You haven't called me in 3 months. Suddenly you track down my number and need exactly $5,000 on the same day I'm supposed to meet someone about a job opportunity. That's one hell of a coincidence, Lena." Her blood turned to ice. A meeting about a job opportunity. The Volkovs. Marcus was planning to sell them the files today. She had to keep him here, had to give Adrian's people time. "I don't know anything about your job opportunities," she said, forcing confusion into her voice. "I just know our daughter is sick and I'm broke and you owe us. That's all this is, Marcus. I swear." He studied her face, looking for cracks in the facade. Lena held his gaze, let him see her exhaustion, her fear, her desperation, all real, even if the reasons were different than he thought. "How did you really get this number?" he asked. "I told you, Sarah from your old office." "Sarah moved to Portland 6 months ago. Try again." "Damn it." Lena's mind raced. "Fine. I went through your old email, found some correspondence with your brother. He gave me the number." "I don't have a brother." The trap she'd walked into closed around her. Marcus's expression shifted from suspicious to certain, and Lena knew she'd lost him. "Who sent you?" His hand moved to his pocket, and Lena's heart seized, thinking he might have a weapon, but he just pulled out his phone. "Who are you working with?" "No one. Marcus, I'm not—" "The Volkovs? Did they get to you? Threaten Maya?" His voice rose, panic bleeding through the anger. "Jesus Christ, Lena, what did you tell them? I'm not working with the Volkovs." That much at least was true. "Marcus, please, just give me the money and we can both walk away." "Maya will be so relieved," she said suddenly, desperately, the signal words tumbling out wrong, too early, before she had the money, before Adrian's people could confirm the files. Everything happened at once. Marcus's eyes widened in understanding. "You stupid—" He turned to run just as 3 men appeared from different directions, moving fast and purposeful. Marcus saw them, spun back toward Lena with betrayal written across his face, then bolted toward the lake. "Don't run!" Lena heard herself shout, but he was already sprinting, the envelope of cash flying from his hand as he ran. One of Adrian's men closed the distance with practiced speed, but Marcus was desperate and fear made him fast. He vaulted over a bench, nearly colliding with an elderly woman walking her dog. The woman screamed. The dog barked frantically. Suddenly everyone in the park was looking, witnessing, becoming part of this. Chen's voice crackled in Lena's ear through the wire. "North unit, cut him off. South unit, move in. Keep it quiet. No weapons unless necessary." But it was too late for quiet. Marcus was running full tilt now, and Adrian's people were chasing him in broad daylight, and civilians were pulling out phones, recording, becoming evidence Adrian couldn't afford. A black SUV roared into the parking lot, tires squealing. For a moment, Lena thought it was Torres, Adrian's backup, but the doors flew open and 3 men emerged wearing the hard faces of violence. The Volkovs. "Shit!" Chen's voice hissed in her ear. "Volkov units on site. All teams, weapons hot. Protect the asset." Asset. They meant Marcus. The man currently running for his life now had 2 groups of armed criminals chasing him. Lena stood frozen, watching her plan disintegrate into chaos. Marcus reached the edge of the lake and actually hesitated, looking at the water like he might jump in. One of the Volkov men raised a gun. "No!" The scream tore from Lena's throat. A shot cracked across the park. Civilians scattered, screaming. The elderly woman fell, her dog's leash tangling around her legs. Parents grabbed children and ran. The man who'd been reading the newspaper, one of Adrian's, Lena realized, drew his own weapon and returned fire. The Volkov's bullet had missed Marcus by inches, shattering a boathouse window instead. Marcus dropped to the ground, crawling behind a concrete barrier. Adrian's people were converging from multiple angles now, no longer pretending to be civilians, their weapons drawn and visible. This was a gunfight, in a public park, in the middle of the afternoon, because of her, because of the call she'd made. "Get to extraction now!" Chen's voice was sharp in her ear. "Mrs. Carter, move! North lot, immediately." But Lena couldn't move. She stared at Marcus huddled behind that barrier, at the Volkov men advancing with their guns drawn, at Adrian's people trying to establish a perimeter, at the innocent people running and screaming and recording this nightmare on their phones. Maya's father was about to die. Right here. Right now. And it would be Lena's fault. She ran toward him. "Mrs. Carter, stop!" Chen's voice was frantic. "Get back! You're in the line of fire!" Lena didn't care. She sprinted across the grass, past the abandoned bench where the envelope of cash lay scattered, toward the lake where Marcus pressed himself against concrete and prayed. Another shot rang out. Something hit the ground near her feet, kicking up dirt and grass. The Volkovs weren't discriminating between targets anymore. They just wanted Marcus dead and anyone associated with him eliminated. "Lena!" Marcus saw her coming, his eyes wild. What the hell are you doing? Saving your stupid life. She dove behind the barrier next to him, her shoulder slamming into concrete hard enough to bruise. Give Adrian what he wants. Give him the files, right now before they kill us both. Adrian Varela sent you? Marcus's laugh was edged with hysteria. You made a deal with Adrian Varela? Do you have any idea what you've done? I know I'm trying to keep Maya safe. Lena grabbed his jacket, shaking him. The Volkovs were coming for me anyway. For her. Adrian offered protection. What choice did I have? Another volley of gunfire, closer this time. The Volkovs were advancing, using the chaos to press their advantage. Adrian's people were outnumbered but better positioned, using the park's architecture for cover. The files, Lena demanded. Where are they? Marcus hesitated, then reached into his jacket. He pulled out a USB drive on a keychain, the same one from Adrian's photo. Such a small thing. So much blood for so little. They'll kill me the second I give this up, he said. They'll kill you if you don't. At least with Adrian you have a chance. Lena snatched the drive from his hand. Stay here, stay down. Let me fix this. Lena, don't. But she was already standing, holding the USB drive above her head like a white flag. Her voice rang out across the chaos, surprisingly strong. I have what you want. Everyone stop shooting. I have the files. The gunfire didn't stop immediately. One more shot from the Volkovs, one more return from Adrian's people. Then silence fell like a curtain, broken only by distant sirens and the sobbing of terrified civilians. An SUV pulled up 20 feet away, and Adrian emerged. He looked completely calm, like walking into an active shooting situation was just another Tuesday afternoon. His eyes found the USB drive in Lena's raised hand, then dropped to her face. Bring it here, he called. The Volkovs were shouting now in Russian, arguing among themselves. Their leader, a broad man with a shaved head and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, raised his weapon toward Lena. Girl gives drive to us, he said in heavily accented English. Or we kill everyone, starting with ex-husband. Lena stood between them, literally caught in the crossfire, holding the thing they both wanted. Her hand shook, but she kept the drive raised, visible. If anyone shoots me, this goes in the lake, she said. And you all can explain to your bosses how you let millions of dollars sink to the bottom. Adrian's mouth curved in something that might have been approval. Smart girl. Not girl, the Volkov leader spat. Fool. You think Varela lets you live after this? You witness. You liability. I'm a mother trying to protect her child, Lena shot back. And right now, both of you are in my way. The sirens were getting louder. Police, probably multiple units, responding to reports of shots fired in Lincoln Park. Neither the Volkovs nor Adrian could afford to be here when they arrived. We're out of time, Adrian said, his voice carrying across the distance. Lena, throw me the drive. Get in my car. We leave. The Volkovs leave. No one else dies today. You think we walk away? The Volkov leader laughed, harsh and ugly. You think we let you take our property? It was never yours, Adrian said coldly. Marcus stole it from me. You just convinced him to do it. That makes you thieves who failed to execute. Cut your losses and leave while you still can. Or what? You shoot us all? Here? Now? With police coming? The Russian's smile was vicious. You can't afford seeing any more than we can. He was right, and everyone knew it. The standoff hung there, balanced on a knife's edge, while the sirens grew impossibly closer. Lena made a choice. She threw the drive to Adrian, who caught it with one hand. Then she ran back to Marcus, grabbed his arm, and hauled him to his feet. Move, she hissed. Both of you, move now before the cops arrive and this gets even worse. Adrian was already backing toward his SUV, his people providing cover. The Volkovs were retreating too, their leader's face purple with rage but pragmatism winning over pride. They couldn't fight Adrian's people and avoid the police. They had to choose. They chose survival. Both groups melted away with the practiced efficiency of criminals who'd done this dance before. By the time the first police car screamed into the parking lot, the park was full of shocked civilians and spent brass casings, but no obvious suspects. Lena stood with Marcus at the lake's edge, both of them breathing hard, both covered in dirt and grass stains. They looked like what they were, caught in something beyond their understanding. Mrs. Carter? An officer approached, hand on his holster. "Sir, are you injured? Did you see what happened?" "We were just walking," Lena said, the lies smooth and automatic now. "We heard shots and ran. We didn't see anything." The officer looked skeptical but nodded. "We're going to need statements from everyone. Please wait over there with the other witnesses." They joined the cluster of terrified parkgoers being corralled near the boathouse. Lena's mind raced. Adrian had the files. The Volkovs had fled. Marcus was alive but exposed, and she was stuck giving a police statement when she should be getting back to Maya. Marcus leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. "We have to run. Both of us. Right now. They'll come for me. And you're involved now, too. Adrian won't just let you walk away." "He will," Lena said, surprised by her own certainty. "He got what he wanted." "You don't understand these people. I understand better than you do." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since the divorce. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. "You stole from them, Marcus. You put our daughter at risk for money you were going to lose gambling anyway. Don't lecture me about understanding." His face crumpled. "I never meant for any of this to touch you or Maya. I was trying to fix things, the debts, the pressure. I thought if I could just—" "You thought about yourself, like always." Lena's voice was flat, empty of the anger she'd carried for months. "But it's done now. You're alive. The Volkovs didn't get you. Adrian has his files, and I'm taking Maya somewhere you'll never find us." "Lena, please, she's my daughter too." "Is she?" "Because fathers don't abandon their children for 3 months. Fathers don't steal from criminals without considering the consequences. Fathers don't—" Her voice broke. "You lost the right to claim her when you chose gambling debts over her medication." The officer was approaching to take their statements. Lena stood, smoothing her jacket, preparing to lie again. "After this, you disappear," she told Marcus quietly. "You take whatever money you have left and you run. You never contact us. You never try to find us. You become a ghost." "But that's the deal, Marcus. Your life for your absence. Take it or leave it." He stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. The Lena he'd married would never have made deals with criminals, or stood in the middle of a gunfight, or threatened her ex-husband with permanent exile from his daughter's life. But that Lena was gone, burned away in the past 24 hours. This Lena did what was necessary. This Lena survived. She gave her statement to the police with the bland consistency of someone who'd truly seen nothing useful. Yes, she'd been meeting her ex-husband to discuss their daughter. Yes, they'd heard shots. No, they hadn't seen the shooters. No, she had no idea what it was about. Just wrong place, wrong time. Terrible luck. The officer took notes, clearly not buying it entirely, but lacking evidence to push harder. After an hour of questioning that went nowhere, they were released with instructions not to leave town. Lena walked to the north parking lot where Torres still waited, impossibly patient. Marcus followed a few steps behind, uncertain. "Don't," Lena said without turning around. "Say goodbye now. Walk away. Remember the deal." "Tell Maya," his voice cracked. "Tell her I love her. Even if I was terrible at showing it, tell her that." Lena stopped, her hand on the car door. She didn't look back. "No," she said quietly. "I'll tell her you had to go away, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes they can't fix, that she deserves better than waiting for a father who might never show up." "That's cruel." "That's honest." She got into the car, and Torres pulled away before Marcus could say anything else. In the rearview mirror, she watched him stand there in the parking lot, growing smaller and smaller, until distance made him disappear entirely. The drive back to Adrian's estate passed in silence. Lena stared out the window, feeling nothing. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only exhaustion so profound it felt like gravity had doubled. When they arrived, Adrian was waiting in the entrance hall. He held up the USB drive. "Encrypted, as expected, but my people will have it cracked within the hour." His eyes searched her face. "You took a hell of a risk back there." "I didn't want him dead." "Even after everything?" "Even after everything. He's still Maya's father. Was." Lena corrected herself. "Was her father." Adrian pocketed the drive. "The Volkovs will regroup. They'll come after Marcus again, probably within days. He won't survive the second attempt. Not my problem anymore. Cold. But Adrian sounded almost impressed. You've learned fast. I learned what I had to. Lena moved toward the staircase. We had a deal. The files are yours. I want what you promised. New identities, fresh start. I remember. Adrian pulled an envelope from his jacket. Passports for you and Maya. Birth certificates. Social security cards. Complete documentation for Sarah and Emma Wilson, originally from Portland, now relocating to wherever you choose. Lena took the envelope with numb fingers. Sarah and Emma Wilson. Their new names, their new lives. There's also $50,000 in the account listed there. Enough to get settled, start over properly. Adrian's expression was unreadable. I keep my promises, Lena. She should have felt relief, gratitude, even. Instead, she just felt hollow. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll have Torres drive you to the airport. From there, you're on your own. Adrian paused. For what it's worth, you did well today. Better than most people would have under the circumstances. I sold out my daughter's father and started a gunfight in a public park. Forgive me if I don't feel accomplished. You survived. In my world, that's the greatest accomplishment there is. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. The wire you wore. I'll need it back. Lena had forgotten she was still wearing it. She reached under her jacket, unclipped the device, and handed it over. Her last connection to Adrian's world, surrendered without ceremony. Goodbye, Mr. Varela. Goodbye, Sarah Wilson. He used her new name deliberately, a reminder that Lena Carter was dying tonight. I hope Portland treats you well. Then he was gone, disappearing into his mansion, returning to whatever empire of crime and violence he'd built. Lena climbed the stairs to find Maya and Elena finishing dinner in the suite. Her daughter looked up with a smile that cracked something in Lena's chest. Mommy, Elena made spaghetti. It's really good. I'm glad, baby. Lena knelt down, pulling Maya into a hug so tight her daughter squirmed. You're squishing me, Maya giggled. Sorry, I just missed you. Lena breathed in the scent of her, clean and sweet and alive. How would you feel about an adventure? A real one this time. Where? Somewhere new. Somewhere safe. Just you and me, starting over. Maya considered this with the seriousness of a child being asked to make a grown-up decision. Can I bring Mr. Fuzzy? She held up her battered stuffed rabbit. Of course. Then, okay. I like adventures with you. If only she knew what kind of adventure they'd really been on, what kind of people her mother had bargained with, what had been sacrificed to keep her safe. But Maya didn't need to know. That weight was Lena's to carry. Elena excused herself quietly, leaving them alone. Lena helped Maya get ready for bed, going through the familiar rituals, brushing teeth, finding pajamas, one last check of the nebulizer, even though Maya's breathing was clear tonight. As she tucked her daughter in, Maya asked the question Lena had been dreading. Is Daddy coming to say goodbye? Lena's throat tightened. No, baby. Daddy had to go on his own adventure. But he wanted me to tell you. She paused, changing her mind about what Marcus had asked. He wanted me to tell you that you're the best thing he ever did, and that he's sorry he wasn't better at showing up. It was more kindness than Marcus deserved, but Maya needed it. Needed closure, even if it was a lie. Okay, Maya said softly. I'm sad, but okay. It's okay to be sad. I'm sad too sometimes. Lena stroked her daughter's hair. But we're going to be okay. I promise you that. We're going to be better than okay. Maya's eyes were already closing, exhaustion from the day's upheaval pulling her under. Within minutes, she was asleep. Lena sat in the window seat, watching the darkness beyond the glass, thinking about the past 24 hours. How one wrong text message had led to this. How many lives had been upended because of a single mistyped digit. Tomorrow, she would take her daughter and disappear. They would become the Wilson family. They would build a new life somewhere Marcus couldn't find them, somewhere the Volkovs and Adrian Varela and all the rest of that dark world couldn't touch them. But tonight, Lena Carter allowed herself to mourn. For the marriage that had failed. For the man Marcus could have been, but never was. For the innocence she'd lost in learning how to survive in a world that didn't care about single mothers with sick children. Tomorrow, she would be strong. Tomorrow, she would be Sarah Wilson, starting fresh. Tonight, she was still Lena Carter, and she let herself cry for everything that had brought her to this beautiful, terrible place. Outside, the estate's security lights cast long shadows across the manicured grounds. Inside, a little girl slept peacefully, unaware that her whole world had changed. And in the darkness between the two, Lena made herself a promise. Whatever came next, wherever they ended up, she would never be powerless again. She would never be caught off guard. She would learn from Adrian's ruthless efficiency, from the hard lessons of the past day, from the simple truth that the world was cruel to those who didn't know how to fight back. Maya would grow up safe, protected, loved, and anyone who threatened that would learn exactly how far a mother would go to defend her child. The wire was gone, the debt was paid, the files were recovered. But Lena Carter wasn't finished transforming. Not yet. Morning came too quickly and not fast enough. Lena had barely slept, her mind replaying the gunfire in the park, Marcus's face when he realized she'd betrayed him, the cold weight of the USB drive in her hand. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian's calculating gaze or heard the Volkov leader's threats or felt the wire against her skin, broadcasting her lies to an audience she couldn't see. Maya woke at 6, disoriented in the unfamiliar room, until Lena gathered her close and reminded her about their adventure. Her daughter accepted this with the adaptability of children, already moving on to more immediate concerns like what Elena might make for breakfast and whether Mr. Fuzzy needed his own suitcase. They packed the few belongings they'd brought, plus some clothes Elena had mysteriously procured overnight in exactly Maya's size. Lena didn't ask how. She was learning that in Adrian's world, impossible things happened with disturbing efficiency. Torres appeared at 7:30 with the quiet announcement that the car was ready. Elena hugged Maya goodbye with genuine warmth, pressing a small package into the child's hands. "Cookies for the trip," she said with a smile, "and some books. Every adventure needs good books." "Thank you," Maya said shyly, clutching the package. "You're nice." Something flickered across Elena's face. Sadness, maybe, or memory. "You remind me of my granddaughter when she was your age. Take care of your mama, yes? She's been very brave." Lena met the older woman's eyes and saw understanding there. How many people had Elena watched come and go from this house? How many desperate souls seeking Adrian's help, his protection, his mercy? "Thank you," Lena said quietly, "for everything." Elena simply nodded, and then they were walking down the grand staircase one last time, through the marble entrance hall, out into the crisp morning air. Adrian was waiting by the car, dressed in another expensive suit, phone in hand. He pocketed it as they approached. "Sarah Wilson," he said, using her new name again. "Emma, safe travels." Maya pressed against Lena's side, shy around this strange man who'd invaded their lives. She didn't know he was the reason they were leaving, the reason everything had changed. To her, he was just another adult in a confusing situation. "The documents are all in order," Adrian continued, handing Lena a leather portfolio. "Everything you need is in there. The account information, contact details for a lawyer in Seattle who'll help you get settled. No questions asked." Seattle. Lena had assumed they'd choose their own destination. "My suggestion: far enough from Chicago, large enough to disappear in, good schools." His eyes dropped to Maya. "Good hospitals." Of course he'd thought of that. Of course he'd planned even this detail. Lena took the portfolio, the weight of their new lives heavy in her hands. "And the Volkovs? Marcus?" "No longer your concern. Marcus left Chicago last night, according to my sources. Smart move. The Volkovs are occupied with other matters." Something dark crossed his expression. "Let's say they've been encouraged to focus their attention elsewhere." Lena didn't want to know what that meant, didn't want to imagine what Adrian had done to make dangerous men look away from her and Maya. "Thank you," she said, and meant it despite everything. He was a criminal, a man who solved problems with violence and intimidation, but he'd also kept his word. In a world that had taken so much from her, that counted for something. "Don't thank me. You earned this." Adrian's expression softened fractionally as he looked at Maya. "Take care of your mother, Emma. She's tougher than she looks." Maya nodded solemnly, not understanding but sensing the weight of the moment. Torres opened the car door. Lena guided Maya inside, then paused before entering herself. "What you said yesterday," she began, not quite sure how to phrase the question forming in her mind. About surviving being the greatest accomplishment. Do you really believe that? Adrian considered her for a long moment. I used to think power was the greatest accomplishment, control, winning. But I've learned that surviving with your humanity intact, that's harder than anything else. Most people in my world lose themselves trying to stay alive. You haven't. Don't let that change. And if it does, if Seattle isn't far enough, if they come for us anyway, they won't. His certainty was absolute. But if somehow they do, you have my number. In the portfolio. Emergency contact only. The idea that she had a lifeline to Adrian Varela, that she could call a crime lord if she needed help, should have been horrifying. Instead, it was strangely comforting. Lena got into the car without another word. Torres closed the door, sealing them inside, and then they were moving down the long driveway through the gates, away from the estate that had been both sanctuary and prison. Maya pressed her face to the window, watching the mansion disappear behind the trees. Will we ever come back? No, baby. We're going forward now. Only forward. The drive to the airport took an hour. Lena spent it studying the documents in the portfolio. Sarah Wilson, born in Portland, 32 years old, nurse at Providence Medical Center before relocating for family reasons. Emma Wilson, 7 years old, second grade, loves art and animals. Their entire fabricated history laid out in official-looking documents that felt more real than Lena's actual life. There was also a sealed envelope marked with just her new name. Inside, she found a handwritten note on expensive stationery. The lawyer's name is Patricia Chen. She's trustworthy. The apartment is paid for 6 months. After that, you're on your own. Don't look back. Don't make the same mistakes Marcus made. And if you ever need help you can't get anywhere else, the number below reaches me directly. Use it wisely. Below the message was a phone number with no name attached. Lena memorized it, then tore the note into tiny pieces and tucked them in her pocket to dispose of later. Even Adrian's kindness came with the reminder that his world operated on different rules, required different cautions. At the airport, Torres handed over 2 tickets to Seattle, boarding passes already printed. He'd even checked their minimal luggage. Mr. Varela wanted to make sure you had no delays, he explained. Security is already cleared. You go straight to the gate. The efficiency was almost frightening. How much power did Adrian wield that he could arrange all of this overnight? How deep did his influence run? Thank you, Torres, Lena said. The driver nodded, his expression neutral, but not unkind. Good luck, Mrs. Wilson. Take care of your daughter. Then he was gone, and Lena was standing in O'Hare International Airport with a child and a fake identity, about to board a plane to a city she'd never visited, to start a life built on lies. Maya tugged on her hand. Mommy, are you scared? Lena looked down at her daughter's upturned face, at those trusting eyes that believed Mommy could fix anything, could keep them safe, could navigate whatever came next. No, Lena lied. I'm excited. This is the beginning of something good, Maya. I can feel it. They made their way through the terminal, past families and business people and travelers living ordinary lives. No one looked at them twice. They were just another mother and daughter catching a flight. Unremarkable. Invisible. Exactly what they needed to be. The flight boarded on time. Lena settled Maya in the window seat and tried to relax as the plane taxied to the runway. With every mile that separated them from Chicago, from Marcus, from Adrian and the Volkovs, and everything that had happened, she felt fractionally safer. Maya fell asleep before they reached cruising altitude, her head resting against Lena's shoulder. Lena stroked her daughter's hair and stared out at the clouds, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 48 hours ago, she'd sent a text to the wrong number. One mistake, one mistyped digit, and her entire world had exploded. But as the plane carried them west toward their new life, Lena realized something that settled in her chest like a stone. She wasn't the same woman who'd sent that text, that Lena had been desperate, powerless, struggling just to survive. She'd been so focused on making it through each day that she'd never considered what came after, never thought beyond the next bill, the next medical crisis, the next disappointment. This Lena, Sarah Wilson, she corrected herself, had learned what she was capable of when pushed to the edge. She'd bargained with criminals. She'd worn a wire and lied to the father of her child. She'd stood in the middle of a gunfight and refused to run. She'd survived. And in surviving, she'd discovered something valuable. She was stronger than she'd ever imagined. The plane landed in Seattle just after noon. Rain misted across the tarmac. The sky a uniform gray that reminded Lena of Chicago, but felt softer somehow. Less harsh. Patricia Chen's office was in downtown Seattle, in a building that spoke of quiet wealth and discretion. The lawyer herself was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a warmer demeanor than Lena had expected. "Mrs. Wilson," she greeted them, shaking Lena's hand firmly. "And this must be Emma. Please, sit." Her office was comfortable without being ostentatious. Family photos on the desk, diplomas on the wall, everything designed to put clients at ease. "Mr. Varela briefed me on your situation," Patricia began once Maya was occupied with a tablet and headphones in the corner. "You need a fresh start with no ties to your previous life. I've handled cases like this before." "How many?" Lena asked. Patricia's smile was thin. "Enough to know that the less you tell me about why, the better for both of us. What I need to know is what you need going forward." They spent an hour going through logistics. The apartment Adrian had arranged was in the Fremont neighborhood, a 2-bedroom with a lease that wouldn't require much documentation given the 6 months prepaid rent. Maya could start at the local elementary school under her new name. Patricia had already prepared the enrollment paperwork. Lena's nursing credentials would need to be reestablished under the Wilson name, which Patricia could facilitate through contacts at the state licensing board. Everything was solvable with the right lawyer and enough money. Adrian had provided both. "There's one more thing," Patricia said, pulling a folder from her desk. "Mr. Varela wanted you to have this." Inside was a deed. Property ownership papers for a small house in Ballard, another Seattle neighborhood, paid in full, in Sarah Wilson's name. Lena stared at it, her hands trembling. "I don't understand. He said an apartment for 6 months. The apartment is temporary, until you get your bearings. The house is yours. An investment in your future." Patricia's expression was carefully neutral. "Mr. Varela apparently believes in covering all contingencies." It was too much. The new identities, the money, the lawyer, and now a house? What kind of criminal gave his pawns a house after they'd served their purpose? Unless she wasn't just a pawn, unless Adrian saw something in her that even she hadn't fully recognized yet. "I can't accept this," Lena said. "You can, and you will." Patricia's tone was firm. "Mr. Varela doesn't make gestures lightly. If he's giving you a house, it's because he believes you've earned it. Don't insult him by refusing." Lena looked at the deed, at the address that was now somehow hers, and felt the weight of obligation settling over her shoulders. Adrian had said she was free, that this was the end of their arrangement. But gifts like this came with invisible strings, with expectations not yet voiced. Or maybe she was overthinking it. Maybe he really was just keeping his promise with characteristic thoroughness. She pocketed the deed and stood. "Thank you for your help, Ms. Chen." "Patricia, please." "And you're welcome. If you need anything else, legal documents, help with employment, anything at all, you have my card. Day or night." Another contingency, another safety net Adrian had arranged. Lena collected Maya and left the office feeling more unsettled than when she'd arrived. The temporary apartment was nice, clean, furnished, in a quiet building where neighbors minded their own business. She spent the afternoon unpacking their minimal belongings and trying to make it feel like home. Maya adapted with the resilience of childhood, already exploring the new space, claiming the smaller bedroom as hers, arranging Mr. Fuzzy on the bed with grave importance. That evening, after Maya was asleep, Lena stood at the window looking out at the unfamiliar Seattle skyline. Her phone, a new one Patricia had provided with her new identity attached, sat on the counter. No contacts except Patricia's number and one other, the emergency number Adrian had given her. She shouldn't call it. Shouldn't establish any more connection to that world than absolutely necessary. But her finger hovered over the digits anyway, curiosity and something else, something she didn't want to name, pulling at her. The phone rang before she could make a decision. Patricia's number. "Mrs. Wilson? I apologize for calling so late, but there's been a development." Lena's stomach dropped. "What kind of development?" Marcus Carter was found dead in a motel outside Gary, Indiana this afternoon. Apparent suicide. Single gunshot wound to the head. The world tilted. Lena gripped the counter to steady herself. Suicide? That's the official determination. The police found a note. I won't share the details, but it mentioned gambling debts and regret about his family. Patricia paused. I'm sorry for your loss. Loss. Such a strange word for what Lena felt. Not grief exactly. Not even surprise, just a hollow certainty that Marcus's death was no suicide at all. The Volkovs? She asked quietly. That would be speculation I'm not qualified to make. I'm simply informing you of the facts as they've been reported to me. Patricia's tone made it clear she understood exactly what had happened but wouldn't say it aloud. There will be no investigation, no follow-up. The matter is considered closed. Of course it was. Adrian had said the Volkovs were being encouraged to focus elsewhere. Apparently that encouragement had included tying up the loose end named Marcus Carter. Does this affect anything with our arrangement? Lena asked. No, you remain Sarah Wilson. Your past remains buried. This simply removes one potential complication. One potential complication. Her ex-husband, the father of her child. Reduced to bureaucratic language and dismissed. Lena should have felt something. Horror, anger, guilt. Instead, she felt only a tired acceptance. Marcus had made his choices. He'd stolen from Adrian, borrowed from the Volkovs, and when the bill came due, he'd paid with his life. She'd tried to save him at the park, had given him the chance to run. Whatever happened after that was on him. Thank you for letting me know, Lena said. Of course. And Mrs. Wilson? You should know that Mr. Varela called me personally this evening. He wanted me to assure you that you and Emma are completely safe. No loose ends remain that could threaten you. No loose ends. Marcus was dead. The Volkovs had been neutralized somehow. The files were recovered. Everyone who'd posed a danger to her and Maya had been eliminated or controlled. Adrian had been thorough. Tell him I said thank you, Lena said quietly. I will. Sleep well, Mrs. Wilson. The line went dead. Lena stood in the darkness of her new apartment in her new city with her new name and felt the final threads connecting her to Lena Carter snap and fall away. Marcus was dead. That life was over. Only forward now, like she'd told Maya. She should have cried. Should have mourned the man she'd once loved, the future they'd planned, the family they'd tried to build. But the tears wouldn't come. She'd cried them all out already, for the marriage that failed, for the mother she'd had to become, for the innocence lost in learning how cruel the world could be. Instead, she poured herself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table thinking. Adrian had given her more than a fresh start. He'd given her a complete erasure. No one was looking for Sarah Wilson. No one would connect her to Marcus Carter or Lena Carter or any of the chaos in Chicago. She could truly begin again. But the question that kept circling in her mind was why? Why had Adrian been so generous? Why the house, the lawyer, the thoroughness in eliminating every threat? Criminals didn't operate on kindness. Everything was transactional. So what was the transaction here? The answer came to her slowly, piecing together things Adrian had said. About surviving with humanity intact. About her being smarter than most people in his position would have been. About earning her freedom. He wasn't just letting her go. He was investing in her. For what purpose, she didn't yet know. But men like Adrian Varela didn't give houses to people they never expected to see again. Lena pulled out the emergency contact number and stared at it for a long time. Then she programmed it into her phone under a single letter, V, just in case. Just in case the fresh start wasn't as clean as it appeared. Just in case Seattle wasn't far enough. Just in case the world came for her and Maya again, and she needed the kind of help only a man like Adrian could provide. She hoped she'd never have to use it, but she'd learned in the past 48 hours that hope was a luxury. Preparation was survival. The next morning, Lena enrolled Maya at the local elementary school. The staff were friendly and efficient, accepting the paperwork Patricia had prepared without question. Maya would start Monday, giving them the weekend to settle in. They spent Saturday exploring their new neighborhood. Fremont was quirky and artistic, full of coffee shops and bookstores, and the kind of people who asked few questions. Lena bought groceries, opened a bank account in her new name, began the process of building a life from scratch. Sunday, she visited the house in Ballard. It was small but well-maintained, with a fenced backyard and a porch that looked out on a quiet street lined with trees. The kind of place where children rode bikes and neighbors waved hello, and life happened in gentle, ordinary rhythms. Lena stood on that porch and tried to imagine it, Maya growing up here, making friends, going to school, being normal. And herself, working as a nurse again, paying bills, dating eventually perhaps, living the life she'd always wanted before everything went wrong. It was possible. Adrian had made it possible. But as she locked the house and drove back to the apartment, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really the end, that somewhere in Chicago, Adrian was waiting for something, planning something, that the phone number burning a hole in her contacts list would ring someday with a request she couldn't refuse. She told herself she was being paranoid, that she'd watched too many crime movies, absorbed too much of Adrian's world in too short a time. But deep down, she knew better. Men like Adrian Varela didn't let useful assets disappear completely. They kept them in reserve, maintained connections, called in favors when the time was right. And Lena had proven herself very useful indeed. Monday morning arrived with autumn rain that reminded her of Chicago. Lena walked Maya to school, holding her hand tight, watching her daughter's nervous excitement about making new friends and starting fresh. "You'll do great," Lena assured her at the classroom door. "You're smart and kind and brave. Just be yourself." "Emma Wilson," Maya said softly, trying out her new name. "I'm Emma Wilson." "That's right, baby, Emma Wilson." She watched her daughter walk into the classroom, backpack bouncing, Mr. Fuzzy tucked safely inside. Watched the teacher greet her warmly. Watched Maya glance back once for reassurance before joining a group of children at the reading corner. Normal. Safe. Everything Lena had fought for. She left the school and went to the hospital where Patricia had arranged an interview for her. The nursing supervisor was impressed by her credentials, carefully doctored to show Sarah Wilson's experience rather than Lena Carter's, but the actual skills and knowledge were real. "We'd love to have you start next week," the supervisor said. "Pediatric unit, if that works for you." "That's perfect." Lena shook her hand, feeling pieces of her new life clicking into place. By the time she picked up Maya that afternoon, she had a job, an address, a routine forming, all the building blocks of normal existence. Maya chattered excitedly about her new teacher and the girl who'd shared her crayons and the books in the classroom library. She was adapting, thriving even. They could do this. They could actually pull this off. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart stopped. Then she opened it. "I heard about your interview. Congratulations on the job. You're doing well. Proud of you." No signature. But she knew who it was. Lena stared at the message for a long time. Adrian was keeping tabs on her. Not threatening, not demanding, just watching, making sure she was settling in, or making sure his investment was paying off. She typed a response 3 times and deleted it 3 times. Finally settled on, "Thank you for everything." The reply came immediately. "You earned it. Enjoy your peace, Sarah. You deserve it." Sarah, not Lena. A reminder that she was her new identity now, that the old life was truly dead. She should have been disturbed by the surveillance, by the continued connection to Adrian's world. Instead, she felt strangely comforted. Someone powerful knew where she was watching over her in his own calculating way. The weeks passed. Lena, Sarah, started work at the hospital and fell back into the rhythm of nursing. The other staff were welcoming. The work was challenging but familiar. She was good at it, and being good at something again felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. Maya flourished at school, made friends, stopped asking about her father, became Emma Wilson so completely that Lena sometimes forgot she'd ever been anyone else. They moved into the Ballard house in November, painting Maya's room purple at her request, hanging curtains, planting flowers in the garden that wouldn't bloom until spring but represented hope nonetheless. Life became normal. Blessedly, miraculously normal. And still, that phone number sat in Lena's contacts. V. She never called it, but she never deleted it either. Some nights, when Maya was asleep and the house was quiet, Lena would take out the leather portfolio Adrian had given her and look through the documents. Sarah Wilson's entire fabricated history, the deed to this house, Patricia Chen's card, evidence of what she'd survived. proof that she'd made it through something impossible and come out the other side. She'd think about that night in her old apartment when black SUVs had surrounded the building and her phone had buzzed with threats. About standing in Lincoln Park with a USB drive held above her head like a flag of truce. About Marcus's face when he realized she'd betrayed him, and the hollow sound of Patricia's voice telling her he was dead. In quiet moments, Lena wondered if she should feel more guilt, more remorse, more something, but mostly she just felt grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful that Maya was safe. Grateful for the second chance that had come from the most unlikely source. And if that made her complicit in Adrian's world, if accepting his help had compromised something in her soul, well, she could live with that. Because Maya couldn't just live. She could thrive. And in the end, wasn't that what mothers did? Whatever it took, no matter the cost, to give their children better than they'd had? Lena locked the portfolio away in her closet and went to check on Maya one last time before bed. Her daughter slept peacefully, Mr. Fuzzy tucked under one arm, her breathing clear and easy. Safe. Happy. Free. Worth every compromise. Worth every lie. Worth partnering with the criminal and betraying a father and becoming someone new. Sarah Wilson turned off the light and closed the door, leaving Lena Carter's ghosts in the darkness where they belonged. Tomorrow she would wake up and make breakfast and drop Emma at school and go to work and live the normal life that had been purchased with blood and secrets. And if someday Adrian called in his favor, if the emergency number in her phone finally rang with a request she couldn't refuse, well, she'd deal with that when it came. For now, she had peace, she had safety, she had her daughter. And sometimes that was all the ending a person could ask for. 6 months passed like a dream Lena kept waiting to wake from, but the dream held. Winter gave way to spring in Seattle, and with it came the kind of normalcy she'd stopped believing was possible. The flowers she'd planted in November bloomed in brilliant colors across the small front yard. Maya's laughter filled the house on weekend mornings. The pediatric unit at the hospital felt less like a job and more like purpose rediscovered. Sarah Wilson had become real in ways Lena Carter never had been. This version of herself knew how to set boundaries, how to say no, how to protect what mattered without apologizing for it. She'd learned those lessons in the hardest way possible, and they'd settled into her bones like steel reinforcement. But the phone number in her contacts remained, a small reminder that peace was sometimes just the space between storms. It was a Tuesday in early May when everything shifted again. Lena was finishing her shift at the hospital, reviewing discharge papers for a young patient, when her phone buzzed. Not a call, a text from the number saved only as V. Her heart seized before she even opened it. Need to see you, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Patricia's office, it's important. 6 months of silence, and now this. Lena stared at the message, her hands steady, despite the adrenaline suddenly flooding her system. She'd known this was coming eventually, had prepared herself for it during countless sleepless nights, but knowing and experiencing were different things entirely. She typed back, "Is Maya in danger?" The response came quickly. "No, you have my word. This is something else, something you'll want to hear." Want to hear, not need to hear. The distinction was important, suggested choice rather than obligation. Still, men like Adrian didn't request meetings for trivial reasons. "I'll be there," she replied. The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Lena arranged for Maya to stay with her new friend Sophie after school, a playdate that Emma had been excited about all week. The normalcy of it, coordinating with another mother, packing snacks, reminding Maya to use her manners, felt surreal against the backdrop of whatever Adrian wanted. Patricia's office was exactly as Lena remembered it. The same family photos, the same quiet efficiency. But this time, Patricia's expression held something different when Lena entered. Anticipation, maybe, or caution. "He's waiting in the conference room," Patricia said, gesturing down the hall. "Would you like me to sit in?" "Is that necessary?" "That depends on what you're comfortable with." Patricia's eyes were kind, but unreadable. "Mr. Varela assured me this is a conversation, not a negotiation. But I'm here if you need me." Lena shook her head. "I'll be fine." She hoped that was true. Adrian stood by the window in the conference room, his back to the door, looking out at the Seattle skyline. He wore another expensive suit, charcoal gray this time, perfectly tailored, He turned when she entered, and Lena was struck by how he looked exactly the same and somehow different. The same calculating eyes, the same controlled presence. But there was something else there now, something she couldn't quite identify. "Sarah," he said, using her new name. "You look well. Seattle agrees with you." "It does." Lena stayed near the door, maintaining distance, old instincts kicking in. "You said this was important. Straight to business. I respect that." Adrian gestured to the chairs at the conference table. "Please, sit. This will take a few minutes." Lena sat, her posture perfect, her hands folded in her lap. Every inch of her screamed competence and control, the armor she'd built over the past 6 months. Adrian took the seat across from her, close enough to talk comfortably, but far enough to not feel threatening. He'd always been good at reading boundaries, at calibrating his presence to put people at ease or on edge, as the situation required. "I'll get right to the point," he said. "The Volkovs are gone, completely. The organization was dismantled 3 months ago by federal prosecutors. Their leadership is facing RICO charges that will put them away for decades." Lena's eyebrows rose. "How did that happen?" "Someone provided the FBI with extensive documentation of their operations, bank records, communication logs, witness testimony, everything needed to build an airtight case." Adrian's expression was neutral. The investigation moved quickly once they had solid evidence. Someone, meaning Adrian, he'd orchestrated the destruction of the organization that had threatened her and Maya. "Why are you telling me this?" Lena asked. "Because you deserve to know that particular threat has been permanently eliminated. No possibility of them resurfacing. No chance of them ever coming after you or Emma." He paused. "You're truly free now, Sarah. Completely." It should have felt like relief, like closure. Instead, Lena felt the weight of obligation settling heavier on her shoulders. "What do you want in return?" Adrian's mouth curved in something that might have been a smile. "I don't want anything in return for that. The Volkovs needed to be dealt with regardless. They'd become sloppy, violent, drawing too much attention. Taking them down served multiple purposes. But you do want something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here." Perceptive as always, Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I have a proposition, not a demand, not calling in a favor, a genuine offer that you're free to refuse." Lena waited, her heart rate steady, her mind clear. Whatever was coming, she would handle it. "My organization has been evolving," Adrian continued, "moving away from the more aggressive aspects of the business, focusing on legitimate enterprises, real estate development, import-export, venture capital. But that transition requires people I can trust. People who understand both worlds. People who are smart, adaptable, and fundamentally good despite having seen the darkness." He paused, his eyes locked on hers. "People like you." Lena's breath caught. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a choice. You can continue being Sarah Wilson, nurse, single mother, living your quiet life in Seattle. I'll never contact you again. You have my word. Or," he pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table, "you can consider this." Lena opened the folder. Inside was a detailed proposal for a position as Director of Community Outreach for Varela Enterprises. The salary made her nursing income look like pocket change. The benefits were extraordinary. The responsibilities involved coordinating charitable foundations, healthcare initiatives, youth programs, legitimate work, legal work, work that would put her directly in Adrian's orbit. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why me? You could hire anyone for this. Someone with actual experience in nonprofit management, in corporate philanthropy." "I could, but I need someone who understands what it's like to be desperate. Who knows what single mothers face when systems fail them? Who can look at a struggling community and see the human beings, not just statistics?" Adrian's voice was sincere in a way she'd rarely heard from him. "You lived it, Sarah. That gives you insight no MBA can provide." "And you trust me? After everything?" "I trust that you love your daughter more than anything. I trust that you'll do the right thing when it matters. I trust that you've earned a real chance at something more than just surviving." He gestured to the folder. "This isn't charity. It's recognition of capability. You proved yourself in impossible circumstances. This is what that capability looks like in the legitimate world. Lena stared at the proposal, her mind racing. The salary alone would change everything for her and Maya. Private school, college fund, security beyond anything she'd imagined. But it would also mean maintaining a connection to Adrian, to that world she'd fought so hard to escape. I need time to think about this, she said. Of course, take a week. 2 if you need it. There's no pressure, no timeline. Adrian stood, preparing to leave. But Sarah, consider this carefully. You've spent 6 months proving you can survive. Maybe it's time to see what happens when you actually thrive. He left without waiting for a response, leaving Lena alone with the folder and her spiraling thoughts. She sat there for 20 minutes, reading and rereading the proposal. The job was real. The foundations were legitimate, registered nonprofits doing actual good work, healthcare access for low-income families, youth mentorship programs, emergency assistance for single mothers facing crisis, everything Lena had needed and never received when she was at her lowest. Patricia appeared in the doorway. How are you doing? Honestly, I have no idea. Lena closed the folder. Is this real? Is he really going legitimate, or is this just better cover for the same operations? Patricia came in and sat down, her expression thoughtful. Adrian Varela has been my client for 8 years. I've watched him evolve from a mid-level operator to someone running a sophisticated enterprise. The shift toward legitimacy isn't sudden. It's been happening gradually for years. The foundations are real. The work is real. And yes, it does provide certain benefits for his other interests. But the good being done is genuine. So he's using charity to launder his reputation. He's using his resources to make a positive impact while also securing his future. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Patricia leaned forward. Sarah, you asked me once how many cases like yours I'd handled. The answer is 7. You're the only one Adrian has ever offered legitimate employment to. That means something. It means I'm useful to him. It means he respects you. There's a difference. Patricia stood. Take the time he offered. Think about what you want, not just for Emma, but for yourself. You've been surviving for so long. Maybe it's time to consider what living actually looks like. Lena picked up Maya from the playdate, listened to her daughter's excited chatter about the games they'd played and the snacks they'd eaten. Normal childhood joy, the kind Maya deserved to have always. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena sat in her small home office and did something she hadn't allowed herself to do in months. She researched Adrian Varela. Not deeply, she knew better than to dig into areas that might draw attention, but she looked at the public face of Varela Enterprises, the real estate developments that had revitalized struggling neighborhoods, the youth centers that provided safe spaces and opportunities, the healthcare initiative that had provided free clinics in underserved areas. Real work. Real impact. Built on money that had probably come from questionable sources, but directed toward genuine good. She thought about her time in the pediatric unit, seeing families struggle with medical bills they couldn't pay, watching parents make impossible choices between rent and medication. She thought about how many of those families could be helped by the kind of resources Adrian was offering to put at her disposal. And she thought about herself, about Sarah Wilson, who'd been built from Lena Carter's ashes, who'd learned to be strong without becoming hard, who'd survived without losing her humanity. What could that version of herself accomplish with real power? Real resources? The question kept her awake most of the night. Over the next week, Lena did her due diligence. She contacted the foundations listed in Adrian's proposal, speaking with directors and program coordinators. Everyone gave glowing reviews of the work being done, of Adrian's commitment to the mission, of the real difference being made in people's lives. She also called Patricia 3 more times, asking questions about legal protections, about separation between the legitimate enterprises and anything questionable, about what happened if she said yes and later wanted out. There's a contract, Patricia explained. Standard employment terms. 2-year commitment, but you can terminate with 60 days notice for any reason. No non-compete clauses, no restrictions on future employment. It's cleaner than most corporate positions. And if I learn things, see things I'm not supposed to? The foundations operate independently. You'd have full authority over programming and operations. Adrian doesn't interfere with the legitimate work. That's the whole point. He wants them to succeed on their own merit. Patricia paused. Sarah, I wouldn't steer you wrong on this. If I thought you were walking into something dangerous, I'd tell you. This is an opportunity, a real one. The deciding moment came on Saturday morning. Lena was making breakfast when Maya appeared in the kitchen, her hair sleep-tangled, Mr. Fuzzy tucked under one arm. Mommy, Sophie's mom said they're going to Disneyland this summer. Can we go too? The question was innocent, full of childish hope. And 6 months ago, Lena would have had to say no, would have had to explain that they couldn't afford it, that maybe someday, that she was sorry. Now, with her nursing salary, she could probably manage it if she saved carefully. It would be tight, but possible. With Adrian's offer, it wouldn't even be a question. Disneyland would be easy. College would be assured. Maya's future would be secure in ways Lena had only dreamed about. Maybe, baby, Lena said, and saw her daughter's face light up with possibility. She called Adrian that afternoon. I want to meet the foundation directors in person, she said without preamble. All of them. I want to see the facilities, review the programs, understand exactly what I'd be walking into. Of course. Adrian sounded pleased. I'll arrange it for next week. Anything else? Yes. I want it in writing that Emma's identity remains protected, that Sarah Wilson's past is never questioned or investigated by anyone in your organization. Complete separation between her life and this work. Already in the contract, but I'll have Patricia add additional language if that makes you more comfortable. Lena took a breath. And I want to know what you really expect from me. Not the job description, what you actually want. Adrian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was more honest than she'd ever heard it. I want someone who cares about the work more than impressing me. Someone who'll tell me when we're failing people, who'll fight for the mission even when it's inconvenient. Someone who remembers what it's like to need help and actually gives a damn about providing it. He paused. I want you to build something that matters, Sarah. That's what I expect. Nothing more, nothing less. The tours happened over 3 days. Lena visited youth centers in struggling neighborhoods, sat in on healthcare clinic operations, met with families who'd been helped by emergency assistance programs. She saw the real impact of Adrian's resources, channeled through people who genuinely cared about the work. The foundation directors were impressive, experienced professionals who'd left higher-paying positions to do work that mattered. They welcomed her questions, shared their challenges openly, treated her like a colleague rather than an outsider. By the 3rd day, Lena knew what her answer would be. She met Adrian at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, neutral territory, public but private enough for honest conversation. I'll take the position, she said, sliding the signed contract across the table. But I have conditions beyond what's in here. I'm listening. Emma comes first, always. If there's ever a conflict between the work and her needs, she wins. No exceptions. Agreed. I run the foundations my way. You can review the financials, veto major decisions if they conflict with the mission, but the day-to-day operations are mine. You don't micromanage. That's why I'm hiring you. And if I ever discover that any part of this is being used to cover illegal activity, I walk. Immediately. With no consequences. Adrian's expression was serious. The foundations are clean, Sarah. I give you my word. But if you ever feel otherwise, yes, you can walk. That clause is already in the contract under the whistleblower protection section. Lena looked at him across the table, this man who'd upended her life and somehow given her more than he'd taken. She still didn't fully trust him, probably never would. But she trusted that his self-interest aligned with hers in this instance. He needed the foundations to succeed legitimately. She needed to do work that mattered. Sometimes, that was enough. When do I start? She asked. 2 weeks? Give the hospital proper notice. Get Emma settled with the transition. Adrian picked up the contract, sliding it into his briefcase. Welcome to Varela Enterprises, Mrs. Wilson. They shook hands across the table, sealing a partnership that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago, when Lena had been desperate and powerless, sending a text to the wrong number in the rain. That wrong number had led to gunfire and betrayal and a man dying in a motel room. But it had also led to this, to opportunity, to purpose, to the chance to turn her survival into something meaningful. The transition happened smoothly. The hospital was sorry to lose her, but understanding. Her colleagues threw a small going-away party, wishing her well in her new position. No one questioned the career change. Sarah Wilson had always been competent, driven, destined for more than floor nursing. Maya adapted to the news with her characteristic resilience. Mommy had a new job that would help lots of families. They'd have more money for fun things. Everything was an adventure. Lena's first day at the Varela Enterprises office in downtown Seattle was surreal. Her corner office overlooked the Sound, with windows that let in floods of natural light. Her assistant was a sharp young woman named Jennifer, who'd previously worked in nonprofit management and was thrilled to be part of expanding the foundation work. Adrian stopped by late morning, checking in with the casual authority of someone who owned the building. "Everything you need?" he asked. "More than enough." Lena gestured around the office. "This is excessive for nonprofit work." "You'll be meeting with donors, partners, city officials. The setting matters." Adrian moved to the window, looking out at the city. "Besides, you've earned it. Stop questioning whether you deserve good things." It was the kind of insight that reminded Lena he saw more than people realized. That beneath the calculating exterior was genuine perception. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for this opportunity, for everything. Thank me by doing excellent work. That's all I ask." He headed for the door, then paused. "Sarah, I meant what I said before. You're free to build something meaningful here. Don't hold back. Dream bigger than survival." Over the following months, Lena discovered what it felt like to have resources matched with purpose. She expanded the healthcare clinics into 3 new neighborhoods. She launched a scholarship program for children of single parents. She created a rapid response fund for families facing eviction or medical crisis, the kind of emergency assistance that would have changed everything for the desperate mother she'd been. The work was consuming in the best way. She met families whose stories mirrored her own, people on the edge who just needed someone to see them, to help. And now she had the power to do exactly that. Maya thrived. Private school gave her access to resources that nurtured her creativity and intellect. She made friends easily, participated in after-school programs, grew more confident every day. The shadow of her difficult early years faded into memory. Adrian kept his word about non-interference. He reviewed quarterly reports, asked thoughtful questions about program outcomes, and approved every expansion Lena proposed. But he never dictated strategy, never pushed his own agenda beyond ensuring the foundation succeeded. They settled into a professional relationship that was surprisingly functional. Monthly meetings to review finances and strategy. Occasional events where Adrian's presence lent credibility to fundraising efforts, but always bounded, controlled, clear about what it was and wasn't. Lena found herself respecting him more than she'd expected. He was ruthless in business, but genuinely committed to the foundation work. The contradiction bothered her less as time passed. People were complicated. Good and bad mixed together in ways that defied simple categorization. A year after she'd started, the foundations won a prestigious humanitarian award for their healthcare access work. Lena accepted it at a gala dinner, giving a speech about second chances and the importance of seeing people's humanity rather than their circumstances. Adrian attended, sitting at a table with other business leaders, clapping politely as she spoke. Afterward, at the reception, he approached with champagne. "Congratulations. Well deserved." "Thank you. Though this is your award as much as mine, your resources made it possible." "My money, your vision and execution." Adrian raised his glass. "To successful partnerships." Lena clinked her glass against his. "To second chances." "And to the woman brave enough to seize them." They drank, and in that moment Lena felt something shift. The fear and resentment she'd carried toward Adrian had transformed into something more complex. Not friendship, exactly, not trust in the traditional sense, but a recognition of mutual benefit, of respect earned through consistent action. He'd given her the tools to rebuild her life. She'd used them to create something meaningful. Whatever darkness existed in his world, this part was light. That was enough. 2 years after the wrong text message that had changed everything, Lena stood in the backyard of her Ballard home, watching Maya play with friends at her 9th birthday party. The yard was full of laughter and children and the kind of joy that came from genuine security. Maya was thriving, happy, healthy, completely unaware of how close they'd come to losing everything. Lena's phone buzzed with a text. She expected it to be one of the parents confirming pickup times, but it was from Adrian. Happy birthday to Emma. She's lucky to have you. Lena smiled and typed back, We're both lucky. Thank you for making this possible. His response came quickly. You made it possible. I just got out of the way. It was generous, probably more generous than was true, but Lena accepted the sentiment. She'd spent 2 years proving she could do more than survive. She'd built programs that helped hundreds of families. She'd created opportunities for single mothers like she'd been. She'd turned her worst moment into a foundation for genuine good, and she'd done it while keeping Maya safe, giving her daughter the childhood she deserved, becoming the kind of mother who didn't just endure, but actually lived. The journey from that desperate woman in a Chicago apartment to this version of herself felt impossible, but it had happened. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one decision to keep moving forward even when the path was dark. Maya ran over, her face flushed with happiness. Mommy, can we do cake now? Absolutely, baby. Lena wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders. Let's make a wish. They gathered everyone around the table where an elaborate birthday cake waited, decorated with purple frosting and topped with 9 candles. Lena lit them while the children sang, watching Maya's face glow in the candlelight. Make a wish, Lena said. A big one. Maya closed her eyes, her expression serious with the weight of the moment. Then she blew out all the candles in one breath, and everyone cheered. What did you wish for? Sophie asked. Can't tell, Maya said wisely, or it won't come true. But later, when the party was over and the guests had gone home, when they were cleaning up together in the quiet house, Maya told Lena her wish. I wish that we could stay like this forever, she said softly. Happy. Together. Safe. Lena pulled her daughter close, feeling tears prick her eyes. That's my wish too, baby. And as she held Maya in their beautiful home, in the life they'd built from ashes and second chances, Lena knew that some wishes did come true. Not perfectly. Not without cost. Not without scars and secrets and shadows that would always linger at the edges. But true, nonetheless. She'd been broken by betrayal and desperation. She'd bargained with criminals and compromised her principles. She'd walked through fire to reach this moment. And she'd emerged not as a victim, but as someone stronger, someone capable, someone who'd learned that survival was just the beginning and that real living meant building something meaningful from the wreckage. The text message sent to the wrong number hadn't destroyed her life after all. It had rewritten it. And this time, Lena Carter, Sarah Wilson, had chosen exactly how the story would end, with her daughter safe and happy, with work that mattered, with peace earned through impossible choices and the strength to live with them, with a future that belonged entirely to her. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lena sat at her desk and did something she'd been meaning to do for months. She opened her phone and deleted the contacts saved as V, not out of anger or fear, not to sever the connection completely. She knew Adrian would always be reachable if needed, but because she didn't need the reminder anymore, didn't need the emergency contact burning a hole in her phone, waiting for disaster. She'd learned to save herself, to build her own safety, to create the life she wanted rather than just accepting what others offered. Adrian had given her the tools and the opportunity, but she'd done the work. She'd made the choices. She'd become someone who didn't need to be rescued because she'd learned to be her own rescue. The phone number disappeared from her contacts, and with it, the last ghost of the terrified woman who'd sent that desperate text in the rain. Sarah Wilson existed fully now, not as a mask or a lie, but as the truth of who Lena had become through fire and choice and the determination to give her daughter better. She closed her phone and went to bed, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, that the foundations would need her attention, that Maya would need her help with homework, that life would continue in its beautiful, complicated way. But for tonight, she had peace. Real, earned, chosen peace. And that was the greatest victory of all. The story that had begun with one wrong message had ended exactly where it needed to, with a mother and daughter safe in the home they'd built together, with work that mattered, with a future full of possibility rather than dread. Some mistakes led to disaster. This one had led to transformation. And Sarah Wilson, looking out at the Seattle night through her bedroom window, smiled at the reflection staring back at her. Strong, capable, free. everything she'd fought to become, everything she'd earned, everything she was, the end.